Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we'll be your tour guides today as we deep dive Duncan Jones' 2016 fantasy epic, Warcraft.
And the games that inspired it. But before we deep dive this movie, what have you been up to?
You know, when I conceptualized this what have you been up to segment of the show, I expected we'd have more things to be up to. I expected, music shows and live events and conventions, and the COVID kind of put a kibosh on a lot of that stuff. So I haven't been up to much. What about you?
Oh, I've gotten myself into a few things. I went camping last weekend, which was pretty cool. We've got a little travel trailer. We towed it out to some friends' land up in kind of the coast of Washington, near the beach on a river, and just sort of had a relaxing weekend. That was nice. And then, kind of on a geeky front, this weekend that we're recording is the grand opening of a new gaming store in Portland, Oregon. Mox Boarding House.
Oh, I saw that on Facebook.
And it's a really interesting place. It started up in Seattle. They have two locations up there where my wife Carrie has gone and been a regular. She played in some leagues for the game Malifaux.
What is that? I've never heard of Malifaux.
Well, so Malifaux is like kind of, what Warhammer 40K is, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that, but with far fewer models. It's a squad-based thing, and it's also it's a lot more niche of a game. It's a smaller audience. They're really cool models. It's
hipster wargaming.
Well, I wouldn't call it that. I like it. I like the models a lot. And if the community were bigger, I'd probably buy in. But as it is, she has like four players worth of models, so I don't need to. And then the cool thing about Mox, you derailed me there, is that it's not just like a gaming store, because those are easy. It's what to expect. We're nerds. We go in. There's role playing game books. There's board games, and there's war games, and there's magic cards. Right. That's pretty much everything. And then there's always some whatever. There's a few miscellaneous things that don't really sell much of anything. But Mox is like, what if you had $5 million and you could make a gastropub and elite wargaming and role play and board gaming store all in one place?
That's pretty niche, but also intriguing.
It's really nice. Like it's brand new building, brand new everything. It's the decor is top notch. Like it spares no expense. I just pulled that $5 million out of my out of the air. But yeah, the food was awesome. They have a full tap list of excellent, elite kind of good beers from all along the West Coast. They have a full bar with a custom cocktail menu and just really good food. And as well, full range of wargaming stuff. I've been pretty loyal to some game stores in the area, so I don't know if I'm going to be a full convert. It's a little bit of a pain to get there and park because it's off Burnside near the stadium, so it's hard to find a spot to park there, but man, is it nice.
Ooh, so that's expensive real estate too. So you're right, there's a lot of money put into this.
Yeah, not to mention it's one of those deals where they have like side rooms and stuff that you can rent for like parties and whatnot, so that sounds like a birthday party waiting to happen where we can play games. We can, and it's not like going to a restaurant and playing games. It's actually expected there. And they normally, during non-COVID times, have a full game library where you can check things out and play. Now they don't do that because, sharing is not caring.
Yeah, we can't all be touching the same things with our grubby paws.
Yeah, but if you buy something from the store to play, they'll give you 15% off. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's probably more than most people who don't live in the Northwest want to know about a new cool gaming store. And I've been the other thing I've been doing a lot is listening to audiobooks while I paint my models. I've been listening to Warhammer 40K novels, specifically Xenos by Dan Abnett, which follows around an inquisitor named Eisenhorn. So it's kind of on the good guy side of the spectrum.
See, I've been doing a bit of that too. In preparation for this episode, I decided to listen to the prequel novel, the Durotan novel by Christie Golden, and then that leads into the novelization of the movie, and then that leaves you hanging with how the movie ends, and I wanted to follow along, so I went back deeper into the game Warcraft lore, and listened to the audiobook for Lord of the Clans and for Rise of the Horde.
So you got deep.
Yeah, so now I'm 4 Christie Golden novels deep into Warcraft lore, and I haven't gotten any further than just making a character as far as playing the game.
Oh yeah, and I'm a deep player. I've been doing that since it launched, pretty much. And I'll get more into that during the game section of the podcast. But shout out to Christie Golden for retweeting us or whatever when we brought up her novels.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's we made the big time now.
Yeah, it's nerd famous because a
famous
niche
nerd.
nerd retweeted us for mentioning them. That's cool. So what are we drinking today?
Oh, today our podcast fuel is from Adroit Theory Brewing Company in Purcellville, Virginia. Pushing beer boundaries in Loudoun County, Virginia. Consume life, drink art.
Interesting slogan they got there.
Yeah. I just, I like to theme our beers to the episode when I can, and I went to Cerveza. It's a tap room and bottle shop in Portland, Oregon here, and I thought I'd find us a beer with an orc on it, and I just had no luck. There was no orcish beers in the menu that day, and
I mean, Lewitt has a couple of D&D themed beers, but that's not really the same.
Yeah, I saw some Lewitt beers, and they were not quite on brand, and I know Oakshire in Eugene, Oregon, they've got their Hellshire that comes out every year, and it usually has an orc or something on the label, but it's also like a Belgian quad, and it's thick and caramely, and is not a great summertime beer.
Yeah, maybe not for a hot summer Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, but then I did see these Adroit Theory beers coming out of Virginia, so it's not something we get around here. So that's always, I'm kind of Dave says I collect beer like Pokemon. I'm always trying to get ones I haven't had. And all of their beers either seemed very metal or very geeky oriented, and that's our brand. So I grabbed a few. I got the Heretics of Ix. That's what we're drinking right now.
Dune style.
Yeah, it's got the sandworm from Dune on the can, looking grizzly, and it's an Imperial Northeast IPA, 8% ABV and 36 IBUs. It's double dry hopped with Mosaic, Azuka, Idaho 7, Comet, and Amarillo hops.
I mean, they call it like a Northeast IPA. I guess that means because it's not super punch you in the mouth hoppy.
Well, and because you can't see through it. It is.
Oh, okay. It's
very cloudy.
It's like kind of looks like grapefruit juice, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's really smooth and really citrusy. To drinking it, you wouldn't really know this is an imperial just by taking a swig. I probably would have just said, "Oh yeah, it's a hazy IPA." There you go.
Yeah, this is it's an Imperial IPA that we're in danger of just crushing before we even get through our intro section.
Yeah, we'll definitely need a new one before the main section.
So if things get a little silly later in the podcast, it's because we're pounding double and triple IPAs, and they're just too good to slow down.
Yeah, I think pounding might be an overstatement, but yeah, definitely getting into it.
Sipping briskly
while the other person talks.
All right, you want to take a musical break and get into this?
All right, sounds great. All right, let's jump into this. In 2016, Warcraft, the movie, was released. It was directed by Duncan Jones. It was written by Charles Levitt and Duncan Jones. Interestingly, the budget was 160 million, but worldwide it grossed 439 million, making it the highest grossing video game movie of all time. I definitely would not have thought that if I hadn't looked it up before this.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting because the movie's thought of as being a failure.
Yeah.
When it actually financially was extremely successful, and we can thank the Chinese market for that mainly.
Oh yeah, Asia really loved this movie.
Yeah, and that's sort of Legendary Pictures. That's sort of their bread and butter. Is they do these big budget movies. And America's nice, but China's the market that they're shooting for.
Yeah, it definitely didn't top the charts in America at all, but it just had this extended ripple effect where just money kept flowing in.
Yeah. So something I think is interesting is I'm not a Warcraft player, and I went to this movie, very ignorant of the lore and the stuff around Warcraft. In fact, I always had a hard time keeping Warcraft and Warhammer separate in my head.
Oh, man.
They migrate back and forth, and they've always kind of been
filthy casual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a connection between the two, but as I've dug deeper, they're very, very distinct. But I thought it was really interesting that I'd seen this movie multiple times, but you, the Warcraft player, had never seen it. So what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I never saw it. It came out in 2016, and I was actually kind of I looked at the year, like when all the expansions were released, and it sort of came out when Legion was just coming out, and it was sort of on the heels of Warlords of Draenor, which I'll talk about all these expansions, but that was actually during my least playing time. I was as distant as you could get, as in my subscription was canceled. But as Nick said, I am a launch player. I've been playing it forever. I'm playing it now, but I never saw this movie. And Nick is he's a guy who loves monsters, and monstrous humanoids and orcs and anything like that.
Fair.
And so it didn't surprise me that he was interested in a movie about orcs.
Yeah, I actually saw this movie with some mutual friends of ours. Shout outs to the Humphreys. We saw it opening weekend, and despite not being familiar at all with it, and despite the insane pace of the movie and the information dumping they do, I was immediately caught up in it. And I left the movie like wanting more, and expecting more. I expected, we were going to see the story continued later, even though the critical reception, like we said, was bad. The fan response, at least the initial fan response, was really strong.
Yeah, I don't know why the critical response was so bad, other than they always say bad things about movies about IP that is just pop culture, video games, comic books, anything that isn't arty, critics don't seem to like.
Yeah, and it's maybe it's just because of they've earned this. Marvel puts out some pretty mediocre movies, and I say that as a huge fan.
I say that as not a huge fan.
Yeah, this came out, I think, around kind of in between Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, and I mean, I enjoy this more than Age of Ultron easily.
Well, that was probably the worst one. I mean,
it's up. It's in my bottom 5.
What's worse?
Thor: The Dark World is worse.
My bad.
Iron Man 2 maybe.
Yeah, okay. Point taken, but it's definitely bad.
That's a different deep dive.
We should consider a deep dive of the Avengers, but the problem is Nick would be like, "Oh, let's watch every movie and every movie from a character," which he's done multiple times, but I do not want to do that. Oh, that sounds terrible.
It's the best way. It's the best way to follow the arcs.
I'd do a Lord of the Rings watch it all. That would be a lot more palatable.
Even all 3 episodes of The Hobbit?
And the Rankin and Bass stuff. Everything.
Just everything?
Everything.
All right. We'll put that on the agenda.
It's better than Marvel.
Well, any more first thoughts?
No, I have a long history with this franchise. I've been a huge fan over the years, and I love anything that's vaguely fantasy related. D&D being my life's blood as a child, and The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings books. And I've read tons of D&D novels. So basically, as a child, I just was primed to love anything fantasy related.
So that's it. But you have not said, did you like this?
Yeah, I did like it.
You did like
yeah,
the movie.
I did like it.
Okay, because you were like...
I didn't love it, but I liked it.
You were dragging your feet even of watching it.
Yeah, it was funny because we kind of go back and forth on who's more enthusiastic about a particular topic. Like, I don't know, maybe not, but I love Dune. Like, I just love it so much, and I loved The Last Unicorn too.
Yeah, which I was a little colder on.
Yeah, and I was medium on Led Zeppelin. I love the movie. I love the music, but I wasn't super into watching these documentaries. But it's not very engaging to just sit here and talk about albums.
Let's recap our last 3 episodes.
Yeah. Anyway, I wasn't interested in this very much. So much so that I didn't even watch it until Nick and I had scheduled a hard recording date. I was like, no, I don't. Yeah, I'll do it another time. And you know how when you're hemming and hawing about something, it's obviously because you're not into it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I've been I didn't want to know if you liked it until we got here, so I wanted that to be clean audio.
I purposely left that vague. I didn't want to talk to you about this movie until we were behind our mics.
Well, we want to get into this, but our beers are getting low. Do you want to take a quick break and refresh?
Yeah, let's refresh these beers, and then let's get into a movie about orcs with silly tusk piercings.
We've refilled and we've come back, and we've switched over to Rebel. It's part of a G.I. Joe Cobra themed series of beers. Same style, same brewery. I'm not going to dwell on it too long because I want to get back to that parting diss at my guy Duratan that Dave left us with. You don't like the tusk piercings?
No, they look silly as hell. I like when they have the little banding or the little ring on them or whatever, but the tusk piercings, they look not only bad, but they're impractical for eating, for fighting, for catching on anything. It just seems extra.
Admittedly, I'm not a fan of tusk piercings either. I think mainly it's just because I just can't imagine doing that. It would hurt too much.
Yeah, but I do like Duratan.
Yeah. And
awesome.
I should tell you now, I took insane notes about this movie. I was over enthusiastic last night. I watched it for the, 4th time. And I ended up writing out a very detailed synopsis of the movie. And so I'm going to count on Dave to keep me moving along and not getting bogged down with every little thing.
Yeah, our last episode was 3 hours long, and we're not doing that again. Not for the Warcraft movie. I mean, not to diss it, but it really is a very simplistic overall plot line. You just get lost in the weeds. And if you're not a World of Warcraft fan, if you know nothing and you're just listening to this for some weird reason, there are orcs and there are men and there are elves and there are dwarves, the basic races.
Oh, what about Draenei?
No, they're not, but they're not native to Azeroth. And so on this world called Azeroth, it has orcs, men, and dwarves. There are other intelligent races, but those are mainly the big kingdoms, the civilizations.
Yeah, and seven kingdoms, just like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. And well, this movie is just about how the orcs become part of Azeroth. Mm-hmm. It's not Game of Thrones. It's simple. How the orcs came to Azeroth. I mean, you don't need 26 pages of notes, or whatever you said. I have 1 page of notes, but on the other hand, I've been playing this lore for 15 years, so I don't really. A lot of things I just don't note because it's obvious to me.
Okay, so right off the bat, we open on the universal globe. and it's a missed opportunity because they should have had Azeroth as the world there.
Oh yeah, if
And
you have it spin and you see Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms, and then
yeah,
that'd be,
but
and even Outlands would be great.
Duncan Jones wanted to do that. Universal wouldn't sign off on it, and he was like, "But you flooded it for Waterworld, and you can't let me change the continents." But it wasn't. Universal was
No Kevin Costner.
Yeah, Universal's protective of their brand and wouldn't let him do it. So that missed opportunity. And our opening scene is sort of an homage to one of the old cinematics, I think from Warcraft 3.
Yeah, like the video game trailer, basically, like the fight
of a human and an orc battling. And I think it's really it's not important to the story, but I think it's worth noting because I think stylistically it sets up a lot. It's shot from these really low angles, very down in the dirt. It makes you feel immersed in the action, and that's something that comes up a lot in this movie. Is Duncan Jones loves to get that. Russ Myers call it the worm's eye view, where you're looking up, and dirt kind of flies over the camera or blood splatters the camera. It's a really immersive film style.
Yeah, I just made a note that I thought that opening fight scene was really cool. You didn't really need context. It gave you a vibe of how the humans are. They're gritty warriors, with his shield and his sword and whatnot. And then it gave you a good impression of what orcs are like. They're gigantic and they're savage and they're unrelenting. And I just thought that was pretty cool. Just from a gamer's perspective, the orc is too big in comparison to the human if you're looking at proportions, but that's so nitpicky because the scene was really rad.
Yeah, and I think it fits with, just in my cursory investigation of the game and stuff, it fits with the newer aesthetic of the game as it's evolved. It definitely does not. The orcs are much smaller in the older games, but they have been getting bigger and more Hulk-like in the run up to the movie and since the movie. It seems like. Yeah,
there's a more modern character creator these days, to where you have way more options than you did back in the day.
So another interesting thing I think about this opening scene, and I think this is really intentional, is we're largely seeing it from behind the point of view of the orc, and the voiceover is from Duratan, the chief of the Frostwolf clan, and he's one of our focal point characters. And this is real early on. There's not a lot of media or movies with orc protagonists in them,
or just generally monster protagonists.
Yeah, it's this movie, and then a few years later, Bright by David Ayer came out on Netflix, and those are the only movies I know of with orc protagonists. And something I really like about the World of Warcraft is it's very morally nuanced. There's not good guys and bad guys quite on the level of like a Tolkien fantasy, where it's very cut and dry. If you look like a human, you're probably good, and if you look like a monster, you're bad.
Oh, okay. I was about to disagree with you, because there are certainly
there's definitely bad guys.
Good guys and definitely bad guys, but it's a decision. Like, do you embrace the evil dark magic, or do you instead reject it and try to protect your kingdom like a valiant warrior? I mean, that sort of dichotomy is there, and but it definitely isn't race related or species related, whatever, because Duratan is probably the most noble person in the movie.
Right. And then we go into, we go from Duratan's voiceover introduction into the tent with Duratan and his mate or wife Draka, and we get a close-up of his face, and the visual effects in this movie are stunning. Like, I wrote down somewhere in my notes, the road to Thanos is through Duratan. This is
I like Thanos way less than Duratan as far as looks go.
But the stubble and the sweat, and there's a level of realism that I think it starts with this movie, and it leads up into like how Thanos is portrayed in the Avengers, and that it fits because there's really only two effects houses that do this sort of thing. It's Industrial Lights and Magic and it's Weta from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And they very specifically, they went with ILM because of the Hulk from the Avengers movie.
Oh yeah,
And
makes sense.
I actually think there's some Hulks in there that they snuck in. Like if you
In
look
the
at
battle scenes,
in the big battle scenes, there's a few times like there's some clones. Like there's a green skinned Durotan you see kind of in some of the battles, and I think there's some Hulk with Halloween teeth in his mouth running around out there too.
Yeah, and it's worth noting because you brought it up. The skin color of the orcs is telling, because Durotan has pink skin, like he has like Caucasian looking skin, or maybe
it's like it's kind
tan.
of it's bronze. I called it orange. They always describe it as brown, but
I guess what I was getting at is it's not green.
It's not green. We're seeing not green orcs, and we're seeing a pregnant orc. So it humanizes them. My wife was sitting next to me on one of our viewings, and she made me pause it, and she's like, I want you to put this note in. The close-up of his eyes and his pregnant wife immediately makes them sympathetic. You engage with them. They feel, you read them as human or more human.
Yeah.
Or relatable, at least. Maybe not human, but
I can definitely agree with that. It felt like that scene, the opening scene in the hut, was just meant to humanize them. Like they're kind of playfully talking, and then they get serious, and it's just sort of, it's intentionally trying to make these characters real to you and not just CGI monsters.
Yeah. And not to get too bogged down in the effects, but we are deep diving this. Toby Kebbell, who plays Durotan, I don't think he gets as much credit as, like, say, an Andy Serkis, but he's someone that kind of studied under Andy Serkis on the Planet of the Apes movies, and he's one of the top motion actors. Okay. You know, like he's someone that is very good at acting through visual effects, and I think him as the star of this movie was a wise choice.
Yeah, there are some really talented
or one of the stars,
mocap actors, as they're
motion actors
referred to as, and it's definitely a different talent. And so let's move on from the initial hut scene. Otherwise, we're going to
we'll
be
here
4 hours in, because it's literally a 2-minute scene in the hut where they humanize some orcs.
Yeah. So from there we go. Our frost wolves are marching up towards a major orc encampment, and this is where we're seeing more orcs at large. We're seeing more green orcs, and we're seeing like a desolated world.
And one thing to note is that this is a prequel movie. This is like a prequel to the books or to the games. So, or to the MMO World of Warcraft. So basically the idea is, in World of Warcraft, every orc is green or a shade of green. So having pink skinned orcs told me something. As a game player, I knew these orcs were not Azerothian orcs. These were from Draenor or the Outlands, or these were not, because I came into the movie, I didn't read anything about it. I didn't want to know anything. And so I got that clue. Okay, we're not on Azeroth. I know that because pink skin orcs do not exist on Azeroth in modern day. So when you walk towards the camp and you get all of these greenskins, and then you see Gul'dan, who's this war chief kind of guy. He's actually a warlock.
Yeah, a warlock.
He's a warlock, and he's got like gnarly sallow green skin, and he's got these bony protrusions from his back.
Well,
he's nasty.
It's not clear immediately that they're coming out of his back.
Okay, so maybe I just knew that because I played the game.
It's something. It comes up a lot in both of the books. Durotan's always trying to figure out how the spikes are attached to his cloak, because it's weird. He doesn't look like the other orcs, and it's a stylistic choice that there's human skulls impaled on the spikes, which none of the orcs have encountered.
That's very Warhammer.
Yeah, none of the orcs have encountered humans up until this point, and so they don't even know what those skulls are. We recognize them, but
Yeah.
in world they don't know what they are. And we get our frost wolves that get names: Durotan, his wife Draka, and his best friend Orgrim. Orgrim.
Doomhammer.
Orgrim Doomhammer. Yeah,
I love Doomhammer.
He's badass, and that's a departure from the game lore, right? Because in the game lore he's part of Blackhand's clan. He's not part of Durotan's
Yeah,
clan.
I'm a little fuzzy on it, but interestingly, I also played the Hearthstone collectible card game, and Thrall is the baby.
As of yet unborn
baby. Thrall is the shaman hero you play, and his special weapon is Doomhammer.
That is correct. We're getting ahead, but he.
All right.
And maybe this is just because I wasn't so invested in the lore to begin with. I like the streamlining of the lore that they do to make the movie more digestible. Because
you can't have it be too. Yeah, I guess I long form agree with you, because I hate it when you have to sit through 3 hours of explanation to get to action.
Yeah, so that Orgrim, is Durotan's best friend. It's just easier to have them be in the same clan than to explain they're from two different clans, but they've had a friendship since childhood.
Sure, yeah.
It just makes it simpler. And so
I wish the Frostwolves wore some pale blue like they do in the games. I like that.
Yeah, from their flag, the blue flag with the white wolf on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the movie moves fast. We've spent way more time on covering this a little bit than we actually see it.
This is literally just the intro.
Yeah. There's some deleted scenes from this intro that extended a little bit and introduced us to some of the other orcs with names, but they've been
like Black Hand and whatnot.
Black Hand and Gromosh Hellscream, and we see all that. He's another. He's one of the warlords of Draenor, and he's another old friend of Durotan's.
Yeah.
And that's all cut for time because we have got to get to opening the portal.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour movie already, and they got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, so we see, as you mentioned, we see Gul'dan, we see Blackhand, who's the war chief of the Horde, we see Garona, who's a half-orc slave, and we see the Draenei in cages.
Yeah, and Draenei are they're an alliance race later on. They're these kind of goodly-ish people. They have horns, but they're they have like hooves and whatnot. They're a pretty cool race, and they're in these cages. And I'm like, wow, that I actually made a note of that. Draenei in cages is a nice touch.
It is. It's in the existing lore. There's essentially like a war between the orcs and Draenei before the orcs come to Azeroth. This just sort of gets us there quicker. And it puts a cost on things. It establishes the life for the fell magic. That's the green magic that Gul'dan is using.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's not from the lore that you have to sacrifice lives to power the dark portal.
No, I mean Gul'dan is he's a warlock. And they use soul stones, which only come from taking lives, and soul stones power warlock magic. So, I mean, you could go that way.
So this is it's a streamlining of the lore. It's not really going against it. It's just making it something that you can just pick up on visually. But I guess there's so many like little things that we just take for granted. I just brushed over the dark portal.
Yeah,
there's a big portal here.
Yeah, it's like this giant gate, like this big rectangular arch-looking thing.
With 2 hooded figures on either side. And then all these cages of Draenei, the blue-skinned goat people, all stacked up like cordwood around it.
That's funny that you call them goat people. I never really thought of them that way, but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, they're like demons, but benign demons.
Yeah, like satyrs or something.
Yeah, or fawns. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess fawn is probably more accurate than demon because there are demons to come.
Yeah, there are.
I'm sorry, and it's a little scattered because I feel like the movie is just like jackhammering you with information, like visual information. It's not telling you much. It's showing you a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, they use the whole "a picture is worth 1,000 words" a lot of times because they know the true fans, like the lore nerds, will be looking at it and just drooling all over all of the little details, and then the casual watchers, the people who aren't players and aren't players of the games, and they're just kind of going to the movie for fun, they won't notice every little thing, but they'll notice, oh, there's beings in cages around this giant portal thing. I wonder what that is. Whereas every game player's like, oh, it's the dark portal. Gul'dan is there. He's going to use those souls. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought, because a lot of the reviews I read said if you weren't a player of this game, you would have no idea what's going on. And I didn't have a hard time following it, even though I didn't know everything. Mm-hmm. But I guess what I should take into account is I am steeped in genre stuff. Like I'm prepared for sort of comic book logic and fantasy tropes and things like that. So if you show me a warlock sucking the soul out of a fawn, a blue-skinned fawn, and then pointing at the gate, and the gate opens, I can put 2 and 2 together and get to 4, and I don't have to ask my neighbor like what just happened.
It's just like if you're watching anime, there are tropes and styles that once you've watched a bit, you just understand A leads to B. You know.
Okay. So what we've come up so far is that the orcs their world is dying. Gul'dan has gathered all of the different clans together, which is unusual. They don't normally come together.
Yeah, they like to fight mostly.
Yeah, and he's gathered all of the clans together as one great horde under the war chief Blackhand, who's played by genre legend Clancy Brown, the Kurgan from Highlander, and a whole lot of bad guys. He does his regular Clancy Brown scenery chewing, and it's delightful. We love him.
Yeah, for sure. Big Kurgan fan from way back.
Yeah, there's a lot of Kurgan DNA in Blackhand.
Mm-hmm. So the next point that I have on my notes is basically about Thrall being born.
Yeah, so the Horde is just an advanced war party that's going through, and they only want the most powerful warriors. But we said earlier, Durotan's wife Draka is pregnant, and he doesn't want to leave her behind.
Yeah.
So she straps a shield on her belly to cover it up, and she goes in with the warband, and it can't go smooth. So she has complications while they're traveling through the portal.
Yeah, and then basically, so she has a baby on the battlefield essentially because they encounter resistance, as you would think, but the interesting thing is the baby is pink, tan skinned, and I, as a player, I'm like, no, Thrall's a green orc. Everyone knows that. Thrall is the archetype of the badass orcish shaman. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And so when I saw it, I was like, what the?
Well, he's not pink. He's more like blue because he is
like a baby is.
No, like close to dead.
Yeah.
He's premature. There's birth complications. Blackhand is pissed about it, but Gul'dan comes over and he helps Draka deliver the baby, and he, as you said, he's not a green-skinned orc when we first see him, his little lifeless body. But Gul'dan sucks the life out of a really dumb deer that didn't run away in time.
Oh, there's a bunch of orcs there. I'm gonna chill here eating some grass.
Yeah, and he breathes his magic into our little baby, and he kind of coughs to life. But he is now green.
Turns green. He got infused with fell magic, which we learned fell magic is the term for this warlock dark magic that makes orcs stronger and more powerful. So he took the frail dying baby and made it stronger and more powerful.
Yeah. So Gul'dan, Lion King's the baby up in the air, and he says a new warrior for the Horde. And I have in my notes more like a new war chief of the Horde.
Yeah. Thrall is my war chief. I stay with that forever. I was a OG Horde player, so when they later on in the lore in the games, when Thrall kind of leaves and becomes more hermitish, he's not the war chief. I always was like, nope, you're not my war chief. Leave me alone. Yeah. I'm for the Horde, but I'm for Thrall.
Yeah, and my wife leaned over and she goes, "Is he Orc Jesus?" And it's like, sort of. He is definitely a messianic figure.
He might be Orc Moses.
Yeah, he's Orc Moses, with some Jesus flavor.
Yeah. The Warcraft writers weren't looking too far. They were definitely monomyth.
Yeah, he's but he is biblical.
Sure.
He plays into those tropes.
Well, not to like get controversial, but the Bible and tropes, chicken egg. Yeah. Like it's
there was mythologies that predate the Book of Genesis.
And generally speaking, these tropes and ideas are pan-cultural. Like they're just sort of human ideas.
So I thought that was it. And this is we're talking about the morality of the movie. There's a tenderness to how Gul'dan deals with Draka and the baby. And Gul'dan is like our big bad. He's the evilest thing we've encountered so far in the first 5 minutes of this movie. But there's even some sort of nuance with him.
Well, you say that there's a tenderness, but when I was seeing it, I know Gul'dan is just pure evil, and he is being manipulative. It's a big show. He's trying. Look, I delivered the baby. I saved the baby. I held the baby up in front of the Horde and proclaimed him another warrior. He is a manipulator who is taking a situation that otherwise could have been a problem, as in like a problem with Duratan, who leads a whole clan, at a moment when he could not afford to have divisiveness in his Horde. He took it and he made it a strength while simultaneously poisoning the baby.
Yeah, and I think that's an accurate read on it. And I think the other interesting thing that happens there is it ties Thrall, or we're getting ahead of ourselves because he doesn't have a name yet.
Yeah, he's no name baby.
But it ties him to Azeroth. His life force literally comes from Azeroth.
Sure.
And I think that fits his trajectory and his future. And then from there, boom, the title card comes up and the score comes in.
Are you serious? We've been talking this long and we just got to the score?
We did. I'd say I need you to help me keep on track and not go down into all this, because I literally wrote out the whole movie.
So after the title card and all that, that's when we show up in Ironforge. The dwarven capital.
It's a good thing they put the name on the screen, because you would not know where we're going or why we're there.
Yeah, it's a city of dwarves, and there's a human there as well. He's talking to a dwarf, and they're examining a gun, which is dwarven technology.
Yeah, boomstick.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. But the first thing that appeared to me, because I did very little to no research on the movie, I wanted it to be interesting, was like, holy moly, they got Ragnar Lothbrok to be Anduin Lothar.
So you did not know that?
No, I haven't even watched the preview for the movie. I didn't.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was like, wow, I love this actor. He's so good.
So Travis Fimmel from the show Vikings is our first human character that we see.
Well, and when he calls him Anduin or Lothar, which
he calls him Lothar.
Yeah, and it's synonymous. It's his first and last name. People call him Lothar, but anyway, when he calls him that, I was like, oh, the hero. Yeah. I know these names.
Yeah, and we got and that's Magni Bronzebeard, correct?
Yeah, who is the king of the dwarves.
And I don't think they say that. We are just gonna start from this point on. We're gonna get information and locations just shotgunned at our face.
Yeah, I knew it was Magni, and I know he's the king, but he didn't seem very kingish. Like he wasn't wearing like royal regalia. But they kind of paint the dwarves as pretty down to earth through the whole movie, which is fine because the dwarves are the pragmatic race of this setting.
Yeah, the scene, there's a deleted version of the scene that's a little bit longer and can breathe a little more. But they're going for this 2-hour runtime.
They should have gone for 3.
Yeah, maybe in the end we'll talk about that because I think it's one of the problems with the movie.
Maybe they should have made it a like a 2-parter.
Some
2-hour movies. Ooh.
But yeah, so a dwarven runner comes up with a message, and King Magni says you want to head home, big man, because your garrison just got attacked.
Yeah, and so he goes back, and there's a guy in a dungeon, and I noticed.
Well, okay, so another scene change. Boom, we're in Stormwind.
Okay,
we're in another city.
Human capital.
The human capital. We get a couple bars of the Stormwind theme from the game, and then we're down in the barracks, not in a dungeon. We're going down into the barracks, and Lothar is getting the rundown from his men on what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, my next note was basically just where they start talking to that guy in the dungeon who has a Kirin Tor tattoo.
Right.
And I recognize that from the game. The Kirin Tor mages are an order of mages that live in a floating city that are extremely badass. They're the masters of everything arcane. And so I was thinking, wow, they have this Kirin Tor mage here? That's messed up. They're good guys.
Yeah, but he had snuck into the barracks and was examining the dead bodies, these desiccated garrison
from the orc attack.
Right, but we don't know.
They don't know that. We know that. We
Yes.
saw Gul'dan doing his thing.
Right. So we have surmised that, but they don't know what's going on. We get that.
And Khadgar is the mage, and Khadgar's awesome in the games, and he's awesome in the card game. And I just love Khadgar. He's great. He's a really cool mage, iconic character. There's a few really iconic mages in the world, and we get to see 2 of them in this movie. But that's why I'd kind of hoped for more in the future, so we could have like Jaina and whatnot.
I think in this. If we're not jumping too far ahead, I think this is one of the problems retrospectively of the movies. Khadgar and Thrall are really the focal characters of the overarching story as I see it. They were going to be the hero. It's like a little bit like the Phantom Menace, right? Anakin is the main character, but he's a little kid through the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it seems like they're setting up Thrall to be the main character, but he's not. It's all about Duratan and Lothar and Gul'dan.
But it's and
Medivh.
He would be the main character of the trilogy.
For sure.
Of the trilogy we're not getting.
Yeah, if there was another movie, it would be about Thrall, but I talked about that kind of near the end of this. So I guess getting back to it, they're in Ironforge. They've captured Khadgar because he was snooping these bodies.
Right.
And
he thinks there's something suspicious about them because they're desiccated. They've had the life force drained out of them.
Well, and he's a total nerd. He reads a lot about everything, and so he's more knowledgeable about esoteric lore than these guardsmen,
Right. And Lothar kind of scraps with him a little bit, calls him spell chucker. I thought that was cute. But he says the right words and convinces Lothar to let him examine the bodies. And then kind of a puff of green fell magic comes out of one of the desiccated bodies. He knows what it is, but he doesn't want to explain it. He says the Guardian should explain it, but only the king can summon the Guardian. And so now we've got to see the king, and so now we've got another scenery change.
Yeah.
And we go off to what is this place?
Goldshire and
Goldshire.
Elwyn Forest. And that's the human newbie area in the game. So it's funny that they're kind of painting this as like kind of like an interesting place when really you're used to just fighting like level 1 wolves.
Yeah, but I think that's the point, is we're exploring the world at the pace a new player will explore it.
Maybe.
So it's one of the first places that you go to, and so it's the first place as the moviegoer that we go to.
Sure.
And we go to the Lion Pride Inn, and for some reason, the whole royal family hangs out at this pub out in the woods.
Yeah, just randomly, there's a pub outside of Stormwind, the beautiful capital, and there's the whole royal family.
Yeah, and so there's a prequel graphic novel. That's stretching it. It's a comic book with a hardcover, but
Anything that they can do to get money.
yeah, it's called Bonds of Brotherhood, I believe. I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as the novelizations, but it sets up the pre-existing relationship between Lothar, King Lane that we're about to meet, and Medivh, the Guardian that has been just mentioned.
Yeah. King Lane is one of those characters that only it's just sort of like a name that rattles around in my skull. Like, he's not the main king for any of the game, because this is a prequel movie.
Yeah.
Which is weird that they decided to release a movie prequel to the entire game when the game had been out for more than 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason, something that worked against the movie, and it's another reason why it didn't land as well.
They're telling the story of a movie of a game that launched in 2004.
Basically, yeah. And so here we get our crash course on the royal family. We get King Lane, and we get his wife. I guess that's on my next page. Come on, jump in if you know her name.
Yeah, I didn't write down any of their names, honestly, because I feel like
Queen Taria.
If you're a casual watcher, it doesn't really matter. Oh, Token King, Token Queen. They're not the stars. Lothar's the star.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter who they are. The king is really just a mechanism by which to summon Medivh.
Oh, that's true. In this scene, he really is. He's played Dominic Cooper in A Bad Wig, plays our King Lane, and Ruth Negga plays Queen Taria. I just think that's interesting just because they're on the show Preacher together on AMC.
I didn't know that, but they look like they are, they look right for the roles, but they don't really have that much to say in this area. In this movie. Later on, the queen has a few things to say to Garona and whatnot, but that's coming up.
So in the interest of time, King Lane hears their story, gives the ring over to Lothar, and now we have to hop on a griffin and fly off to
Karazhan.
Karazhan, yes.
Which is a raid dungeon in the Burning Crusade, and so everybody knows about that. But yeah, he gives him the royal seal and tells Lothar he gets to go and summon Medivh. And then he hops on a griffin, which is really cool because it's also another video game thing. And I always loved flying mounts. I know that that's pretty anti-old schoolism of me, but I like it. It's cool. And then he goes to Karazhan, which is this giant mage tower in Deadwind Pass, which is kind of a desolate zone. There's not much in that area, in that region. Except for that, and it's this really cool wizard tower. I really liked it.
Yeah, and we get some really majestic shots as they fly the griffin there, and just like scenery. I think this stuff, it's good for the casual audience, but I think this is really geared towards the Warcraft fan. This is like, oh, see these mountains you recognize.
Yeah, every zone they fly over and you recognize it. You're like, oh, look, there's Darkshire, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and before we get into that, we cut back over to the orcs for a little bit just to see what's going on. The orcs are just raiding human villages, and the Frostwolves aren't into it. They're watching the other tribes just round up women and children and cage them up to be more fuel for the portal, and Durotan just doesn't. He's not into this. He prefers his enemies armed with an axe.
Yeah, and it seems pretty clear at this point as you're watching this montage of orcs raiding human villages and whatnot. These are powerful warriors preying on the weak and innocent, and it's really painting it in kind of a black and white, like this is an evil action. You shouldn't be doing this. That's why Duratan is very easy. It's easy to understand why he would rebuke his own leader and why he wouldn't want to do it. It also becomes clear that Gul'dan wants to open the portal again, but now he's on the Azeroth side of the portal, and he needs to gather up more spirits, more souls, more people.
And build a new gate.
And build the gate around the place where they came. So he's got all of that going on, and it's kind of like it reminds me of like the Sauron assembling his army, and the orcs logging the trees from Fangorn and whatnot. It is
pretty similar to that, and we get just a little hint that Black Hand is not into this too.
And I'm not judgy. Okay, I'm judgy, but I think the Sauron scene is better than this one. Those orcs are way more scary, and their whole thing is a lot more grim.
I think some of those, if you're going to go head to head, some of the flyover shots of orcs being industrious, the ones in the Lord of the Rings trilogy they do still kind of stand a little bit above these.
Yeah, it's a little different. Isengard isn't really the same thing as just sort of a camp in the woods.
And it's one of those things, Lord of the Rings really set a lot of bars. And anytime you have two big armies charge at each other, you think of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And anytime you do a flyover of a bunch of orcs building shit and chopping down trees and everything, you're going to think of Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's really niche. But I do have here in my notes, right about this time, I said, first of all, I wish that wolf mounts would fight with you in the game like they do in the movie. That's cool because orcs ride these big dire wolves. And then I wrote, okay, we're a half hour into the movie, and so far I like it. It's a cool plot, and I really like all the lore. And I'm not a lore nerd. And I mentioned that there are lore nerds. Warcraft has a community of nerds who are really into the background. They're like the type of Tolkien nerds that can quote from the Silmarillion. They're like that, but for Warcraft. And that's cool. I'm not one of them, but just sort of the sponging that I've done over the years and playing all the games, it all resonated, and it made the movie a lot more enjoyable for me. And so far I can see, like, by this point, because I said earlier I didn't know what was going to happen in this movie, and so I was surprised when I saw pink-skinned orcs, and then I saw green-skinned orcs. By this point I knew the whole plot already. I was like, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen for the rest of this movie. And
so that's like me watching comic book movies.
Yeah, for sure. Same deal. And half an hour in, I thought it was totally cool, and that was awesome. And then sort of my next note is about Garona, the character who's the half-orc character, who they don't actually reveal what her other half of her ancestry is, so I actually Googled it.
Well, they do, but it's one of the many kind of, look at your phone and you missed it things in the movie. You get her origin story. It gets told to her, actually. She gets told her own origin story, and she doesn't even pick it up.
Yeah, so what is it?
So, well, it's going to come up naturally in the...
Oh, you don't want to spoil it?
I don't want to spoil it right now.
Oh, man.
Because it's still
Spoilers are okay.
It's a few scenes ahead.
Okay.
Unless we want to really just brush over Khadgar and Lothar going to see the Guardian and all of that stuff. We get Chekhov's golem that the Guardian is building.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that stuff, but it's pretty plot simple. Like, Lothar and Khadgar go. They talk to Medivh, who is the Guardian. He's this powerful uber wizard in his tower, and he's making a golem. He's sculpting it next to this magical pool where it can absorb magic much more rapidly than normal. Yeah,
we get a lot of information, again, shotgunned at us.
And I knew when I saw that, I was like, oh no, we're going to have to fight this golem.
So real quick, what we find out Medivh, the Guardian, who's best friends with Lothar and King Lane, has been sequestered away for 6 years. No one has seen him.
Yeah, he's just been doing his own thing.
He's dismissed all of the staff at Karazhan.
Karazhan.
It's too close to Azkaban, and
That's funny.
I'm gonna stumble on it a lot, but
we can call it Azkaban.
Azkaban. Yeah. He's dismissed all the staff except for Moreau, his undead valet.
And it's not immediately clear that guy's not alive.
No, it's one of those things. Lothar says when he walks up, "You look exactly the same." We can intuit that he doesn't age. If you do a Google, then you find out that he's undead.
Yeah.
It is not, like we just breeze right past that.
He just looks like a gray-haired old guy.
Yeah.
In a robe.
He's been an old guy for a long time.
Yeah. He doesn't look undead at all.
Yeah. And, what else goes on there? Oh, Khadgar gets, an apparition comes to Khadgar and leads him to a special book. That's important.
Yeah, and I felt like that was actually a little bit ham-fisted. It wasn't very subtle. It wasn't very interesting.
There's no time to be subtle in this movie. Like that 2-hour runtime.
Then they should have just deleted it.
Well, he needs to get the book though.
Okay. I mean, they could have figured something out, but that just seemed like a boring scene.
His tattoo, an apparition appears to him and leads him to a particular shelf, and then his tattoo turns into a Geiger counter, and he selects the right book and then tucks it into his wizard robe.
Yeah, he's moving his hand along the shelf, and the tattoo illuminates when he gets to the right one.
Yeah, and then the Guardian comes downstairs, and he's not thrilled to see Khadgar.
Yeah, he's basically like, "Why are you here, scum?"
Yeah, he's like, what does he say? He says that you have ideas what you want to do to the place when it's yours, because Khadgar was a Guardian initiate.
Yeah.
He was scheduled to be the next Guardian.
Yep.
And our existing Guardian is not ready to give up his tower.
Yeah, and there was some talk about Khadgar forswearing his oaths and no longer being a part of the Kirin Tor or anything like that.
Yeah, but Medivh's not buying it.
Yeah, he's basically like, whatever, you can say what you want to say, but we all know the score. You're a wizard.
But Khadgar says the right word. He mentions the Fel, and Medivh snaps out of it and bamfs them over back to Stormwind.
Yeah, teleporting is sweet.
And there's a cute little detail that they teleport into an occupied space. There was people standing there, and I love that when they just appear in the summoning circle or whatever, and the two guards that were standing there get knocked down.
Yeah, I kind of would have liked a chunky salsa effect or something.
They just pulp those two guys.
I mean, that would have been cool.
That would. I might have moved it from the PG-13 to the R.
100%. But I would have liked that.
Yeah. Okay, and then we get more information dump, right? They have to tell the king what's going on.
Yeah, it's just one of those deals where they're just telling the king, like, what is Fel magic? What's going on? How is all this happening? Stuff we as a viewer, we already know because we've been following the Orcish side of the story. So it's one of those deals where they could have glossed over it even a little faster.
You think so? Because I think they handle this stuff faster than the regular viewer can keep up with.
Okay, well, I guess you're a regular viewer. You've never played the game, and you got it.
But I'm built for this.
You're saying you have natural advantages?
I have natural advantage that a casual, this is a popular movie kind of movie viewer does not have.
Okay.
So there's little things like I pick up on there. Medivh is in the habit of kind of tossing his staff to the side, and Khadgar catches it.
Yeah.
And I love the sort of reverence Khadgar has for the staff, because it's a pretty powerful item in the game, right?
Yeah, I can't remember its name. It has a name. I can't remember what it's called.
So I clue in on that. That's the kind of level of nerd that I am. I go, ooh, that's something important. Stuff like that isn't necessarily obvious to everyone. But anyways, they kind of blast them with information, and Lothar decides that they need to go out and get some orc prisoners, or at least a body.
Yeah, Lothar's all about fighting.
Yeah.
And you learn sort of in somewhere in this montage that Lothar's son Callan is a guardsman. He's part of the army.
Yeah, his son actually was back at the Lion's Pride Inn, and he escorted Khadgar in. That's the first time we saw him.
Yeah, and then so when Lothar leads this group out to go and get some prisoners, Callan is with them.
Right, and they go out to Elwyn Forest, which is one of many like beautiful practical sets. It's not a CG location.
Yeah, it's just a forest.
But it's like they built it out. And I think that really makes a big difference in how grounded it feels. It's not like they're walking around a cartoon environment.
Yeah, it looks like a real forest. There's real trees. There's fallen logs, that kind of thing.
So I appreciate that. I think it's something a lot of times these CG blockbusters don't do. They take that George Lucas philosophy and don't build any sets and just have green foam that everyone's acting around.
Yeah, as it turns out, that's crap, and nobody likes it.
So they're riding real horses around trees, and it gives it, even though it's sort of like a magical realism, like even though it's obviously not a real place, it feels like they're in a real environment.
Yeah, and of course, because this is a a very straightforward movie. You go out, you want to take some orc prisoners. Of course, you find some orcs that you can fight.
Well, they find like a caravan that's been massacred, and the guardian clues in on a tree that's got fell magic residue all over it, and he's shocked to see fell magic in Azeroth. He doesn't think there should be any fell magic in Azeroth.
Oh, of course not.
He's got history with the fell that we don't know about yet in the movie. It's detailed out a bit in the comic book.
Yeah, but Medivh has always been in the lore. He's always been kind of a dark character.
Yeah, I guess they signal that because he has like a raven feather cloak.
Yeah, he looks pretty grim.
If you have a raven feather cloak, you're not a bad guy necessarily, but you're not straight up a good guy.
Lord Bracken of Raventree in Game of Thrones has the raven feather cloak. Everybody obviously likes that guy because that cloak is awesome.
It's very majestic looking.
Yeah.
But like you alluded to, it doesn't take them long to find orcs, or more, the orcs find them.
Of course, the orcs are hunting humans.
Yeah, but even though they're all like monstrous and huge, they're also very sneaky. And Blackhand gives out the orc war cry, Loktar Ogar, and jumps down out of a tree and picks up a horse by the throat. And it really gives you like a sense of how massive these guys are. Yeah,
they're huge. Like, must be 8 feet tall, 600 pounds.
They're all incredible Hulk sized.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, and they just start wrecking the people. The only one of them, really, two of them have any game at all as far as fighting orcs, and that's Lothar and Khadgar. People with names are good at fighting orcs. Yeah,
well, I mean, you got to give. Medivh is there, and he's doing great, of course.
Well, Medivh is like studying the fell magic in the tree. He's kind of up his own ass at this point.
And Khadgar's casting war magic. He's doing awesome, and of course Lothar is awesome at fighting, and Callan's doing pretty good too.
Yeah, well, Callan, he ends up getting his ass saved by his dad, right? He's fighting an orc head to head because he's trying to be a hero, and it's not going great for him. But Lothar shows up and cuts the orc's arm off, and he imparts a little fatherly wisdom. He says, "They're bigger. Don't attack him with brute force. You be stronger or smarter."
Yeah.
But Blackhand, who's been itching for like someone that's worth fighting since they've got here, sees Lothar actually kicking ass, and he's like, "That's my guy. I want to fight him."
Yeah, there's actually a human champion worth fighting.
Yeah, he looked at the grunts and he saw the boss on the field and went for him. And so he grabs Lothar by the armor and just chucks him across the field, and then moves in for the kill.
Oh yeah,
and this is when Chekhov's boomstick comes into play, and Lothar turns Black Hand into one hand.
Yeah, he just pulls out the little flintlock pistol, boom, and blows off Black Hand's hand.
Yeah. And so as formidable as the orcs are, they have not seen firearms up until this point, and it scares them pretty well. And this is when Medivh finally finishes what he's been up to, and he sucks all the fell magic out of the green-skinned orcs. And
that's a little mysterious, don't you think?
That's mysterious. Yeah, Khadgar's like, what are you doing? And yeah, all of the green-skinned orcs fall down, and they have their souls sucked out of them, and they're desiccated on the ground, just like we've seen Gul'dan do to people.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's very weird, but I have it. Khadgar has daddy issues, and even though it's weird to him, Medivh gives him a little, "You handled yourself really well, son," and he just
ignores it.
He just ignores it because he got like that fatherly admiration from Medivh, who he respects, and Medivh bamps out of there.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing dark magic, and then I'll just go ahead and gloss a compliment onto this young wizard, the only one who knew what he was seeing, and then teleport."
Boof. Yeah, and Lothar takes off into the woods to go and capture orcs, as the orcs they've now fled after basically 2/3 of them had their souls sucked out. And so now, okay, Garona, because you brought her up. Now we see Garona, and this is something. It took me a couple of views to catch this. Garona's green,
yeah,
but Garona didn't get soul sucked. The guy, her keeper, literally the guy that has her on a chain, did, and she didn't. And that took me like 3 views to notice that that little detail. So
interesting.
Medivh, he didn't just pull the life; he was targeted. Like, he pulled the fell energy out of everyone but her.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I wasn't sure if that was because she was a half-breed or she didn't have as much or something like that. I'm not exactly sure that that's like a huge thing.
Yeah, well, as you get into their relationship later, I think it is significant.
Maybe. I like Garona. She, in the game, she's a legendary assassin. I also find it kind of telling that she's wearing like proper leather armor and the whole deal. They don't mess with that. That's cool.
Yeah. And so our Frost Wolves, they're escaping along with Black Hand and anyone who wasn't fell enriched. And Duratan frees Garona. She's chained up to a dead orc, and he cuts the chain, and she just takes off into the woods. She doesn't go with the orcs. She's going to make her bid for freedom right here.
Yeah, I mean, she was enslaved to them. Why wouldn't she run away?
Yeah. And you brought up the Frost Wolves earlier, like the wolf mounts. I love this scene. A no-name Frost Wolf, he hops off of the wolf and kind of like gives some orcish commands and points, and the wolf takes off into the woods and then like comes around and flanks one of the soldiers that's pursuing them.
Yeah.
And this is something that's elaborated on quite a bit in the books. The Frost Wolves and the wolves that they take their clan name from, they're like pack mates with each other. It's not a master and servant relationship. The wolves are essentially part of the clan, and the clan is part of the pack.
Yeah, and I think that that's really cool, and it's pretty evident they're the only ones in the horde in the movie that have these awesome beasts. And I think that at this point in the movie, my impression, kind of not getting away from the beat by beat, I kind of got a little, I wouldn't say I got bored, but I felt like, okay, this avalanche is already coming down the mountain. I know what's going to happen. Let's just watch it unfold. It's not at all mysterious. There were very few moments where the plot kind of took a left turn on me, and I noted those, but I stopped taking notes about the beat by beat because I was just like, okay, this is predictable AF.
Okay. Well, then, maybe we do start glossing over this a little bit because we're doing a very long form. and now things are going to just start rolling.
Yeah, it's full on that. I mean, they capture an orc.
They capture Khadgar captures Garona. Lothar captures one of the Frostwolves. They don't really establish which one.
Yeah, just some big beefy guy.
And they lock him up in this like sort of circus wagon, and they go to take them back to Stormwind.
And magically, she knows how to speak common. She can speak to humans, but the orc cannot.
Yeah, so Garona, and then this was kind of hinted at earlier, Gul'dan uses Garona as an interpreter. She speaks Draenei too. Like she's like a polyglot. She picks up languages easily. And so wherever they go as they take prisoners, she learns the local language, and she speaks for Gul'dan to them. And so she speaks the human language, and the Frostwolf is not into it. He wants her to shut up.
Yeah, he's like, stop talking to them or I'm going to kill you. And she's like, she doesn't say it, but she looks at his chains, and she's like, you're chained up. You can't kill me. Yeah. And so she keeps talking to Lothar through the bars of this kind of circus caravan looking thing. Turns out these chains cannot hold this orc.
Yeah.
Because they're just in wood. And so he just breaks it.
Yeah. And Lothar ends up killing him.
Yeah, just simple sword thrust, no big deal. And then kind of they bring Garona back to Stormwind, I think. They bring her, and they put her in a cell and all this. And there's a lot of role play. I think of it from a gamer mindset. There's a lot of role play between her and Lothar, and then between her and the Queen. Where the Queen is basically just trying to soften her up and be like, listen.
That's what I put in my notes too. Queen's buttering her up.
Yeah, you're not the enemy here. We're not your foes. Why are you making war on us? We didn't do anything. You can have a life with us. You're accepted here. And she gives her very own dagger. Like that's a big deal.
She gives her like a very pretty, elegant little dagger that Lothar had gifted her. And Garona is kind of like doesn't quite know what to make of it. It's a little bit like giving Dobby a sock.
Yeah.
Like she's like, wow, you're giving me this gift, but it's also like a toothpick. Like it's a completely useless weapon.
Oh yeah, it's so tiny. It's like an eating knife or something.
Yeah, and so the humans basically start making their pitch to Garona. You're more like us than you're like them. Work with us. Tell us what we're up against.
Yeah, what are they doing? What is it? What's happening?
And back at the orc camp, we see Blackhand is getting the riot act from Gul'dan
for failing
and for retreating, and he has to sacrifice himself to the Fel, and he puts his ruined hand into the Fel fire, and it starts like eating him alive, and Durotan is not about it, and he cuts the arm off before it can consume all of Blackhand.
Yeah,
Durotan's just like, again, we're getting it back in our face. Durotan is honorable, and he's about the old ways, and he doesn't like any of this stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. It's more of the same though. Durotan does not like Fel magic. Gul'dan does not like Durotan, and so they have this kind of public confrontation where Durotan is appealing to the orcs when they talk about respecting the old ways, that kind of thing.
He comes right up to the edge, but does not challenge Gul'dan to a mock Garah. He doesn't challenge him to like ritualized combat, but he does like tell him like, you're not giving us the whole story.
Yeah,
there's a cost to your magic, and they killed us they used your magic against us. What do we got going on? Khadgar is reading the book. He's doing illuminations, and he's learning all about the Fel.
They have a council meeting between the king Lane, and then the dwarves and the night elves. And it's kind of the first time.
High elves, right?
I think they're night elves. I mean, they look pretty sinister. They might be high elves at that point. These elves look pretty dark, but they are. These elves are. They're dicks, and the dwarves are isolationists, typical fantasy tropes.
Yeah,
and
that's very Tolkien.
They won't help, so the humans are on their own.
Yeah, at this point we have an alliance in name only.
Yeah, it's not really
the
an
kingdoms are aligned with each other. Is in the fact that they all agree they don't like trolls.
Yeah.
But they're not really helpful to each other. And they convince Garona to show them the orc encampment.
Yeah, the next really cool scene, in my opinion, is when you have a little bit of fallout from Duratan challenging Gul'dan. When you have the Frost Wolf orc clan going to meet with Lothar and Garona, because basically this Duratan is like, no, this isn't going to work. I need to talk to the humans. He gets words to Garona. She sets up the meeting.
Yeah. So when Garona takes them to view the orc encampment and the construction on the gate, Duratan spies them
because they're sneaky as hell. They're 8-foot hulks that are sneakier than anything.
There's you got to figure in their world they're mighty hunters, right?
Sure.
So like we just think of big hulking things as not being sneaky, but bears sneak up on stuff, right?
Okay.
You know, so it's like he's a master hunter. He's like he hunts with a wolf pack.
Yeah, I mean he is the war chief of his, or he's the chief of his tribe.
So he spies them, spying the orcs, goes up, and he's smart. He covers up Khadgar's mouth so he can't say any incantations, and he says, I want to meet with their leader, and he gives a location and a time, and then we get to what you're talking about.
Yeah, so then they're going through this. I mean, why they chose to meet in a chasm, I don't know. It
looks really cool.
But it's really hard to run away.
Orgrim calls it out. Good place for an ambush.
Yeah. And of course, there's an ambush.
Yeah.
But it's not the humans ambushing the orcs or the orcs ambushing the humans. It's Gul'dan fell orcs.
Yeah, green orcs ambushing the frost wolves.
Everyone. They start attacking everyone.
And this is the thing. This didn't hit me as hard until after finishing the books, and really like getting steeped in the relationship between Orgrim and Duratan.
Yeah.
Orgrim ratted them out to Blackhand.
He did.
And it fucking crushed me. Like it didn't crush me like on the first like several viewings of the movie. But
I was like, how is Doomhammer the rat?
I
like him so much.
It hurts so bad. But he is Orgrim the Backstabber. That's one of his other names. From in the lore, backstabbing Gul'dan. But here he backstabbed his homie, his main bro. He backstabbed Duratan,
and then he regrets it later.
Oh, immediately.
I mean,
he immediately regrets doing it.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself like, man, that sucks. Why did he do that? And then, I mean, the scene actually was a really cool fight scene. I thought that this cinematic, it was fast and it was really cool. But Medivh shows up.
Yeah, Medivh went out with the party to ostensibly to protect them. He posted up like a good spellcaster up on a high point because he's not made to take damage. He's made to cast spells. And he starts doing a long ass incantation to cast up like a lightning wall.
Yeah.
But a lot of damage gets done before he finishes his incantation, and then he passes out as soon as he finishes it.
Yeah, and the wall goes up, and some of the Stormwind soldiers are trapped on the other side, and it turns out one of them is Callan Lothar.
Oh yeah.
Anduin's boy, and he's fighting, and Blackhand sees Lothar trying to get through the wall to get to help his son, and he puts two and two together. Oh, this is your boy. You're the one who took my hand off. And he kills Callan Lothar. And I was like, whoa, I actually did not expect that. And also fuck Medivh.
Because Lothar is like yelling, like, bring down the wall, because that's his boy on the other side. And this is,
and Medivh is just like, no,
Well,
I'm
he's
not-
unconscious. Like, he passed out as soon as he finished the spell.
Oh man, maybe my memory's failing me, but it seemed like to me
He was still awake then?
there
Like,
was a moment when he could, but he chose not to
You might
because the good of the many outweighed the good of the few.
you might be right about that, as far as the timing.
Because
I might
on
be
my
slightly
notes,
off.
I write fucking wizards. They always think they know best. They think they're smarter. They think they know everything.
Yeah.
And they make decisions despite what other people might have preferred.
Yeah, and so, I mean, maybe we should have seen this coming because Lothar has been busy not being a good dad to Callan up until this point. He's been very emotionally unavailable to him anytime, like, they had an opportunity to connect. But
Also, Medivh has been busy being a dick.
yeah, and Medivh has been hot and cold, and I don't know if you noticed this, and it doesn't stay consistent as you get further in, but when he's in the Raven cloak, he's in a good mood and he's being nice to everyone, but when he's wearing the red cloak, he's bad.
Well, I mean, I don't think that it takes a super genius to figure out that Medivh is corrupted at this point, and he's battling with it. And when he's wearing his own vestments, like his own Medivh the Guardian clothes, he's Medivh. And when he's wearing those red robes or whatever, he is corrupted Medivh.
Yeah. That's something that didn't jump out at me until I'd seen it a few times.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the costume changes directly, but I did notice it's like, oh, sometimes we have good Medivh, sometimes we have corrupt Medivh. He's been dabbling too much in that fell magic. Another little plot point I have here is because, of course, Lothar gets away and all that, is there's like kind of a romantic tension between Anduin, Lothar, and Garona. And it's not just implied. It's pretty obvious that that's what they, like.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's like lacing her up in the armor, and they're very close with each other, and there's a lot of tension there. And there's a little bit also of a triangle that gets established between Khadgar as the third person of the romance.
It's kind of like one of those memes, and it's like you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about, and like Lothar is the guy that Khadgar shouldn't worry about, like the big hero warrior guy.
Yeah, she straight up tells Khadgar, she's like, you would not be a good mate, you'd get injured.
Yeah, he's just like a little weak ass wizard. But I mean, the thing is I play a lot of video games. Like I like role-playing video games, especially because I can explore all the plot options. But one of the things about Warcraft games is that, by and large, they do not have romance plot options. That's just not really a thing in World of Warcraft. There's no personalized story quests like that where you have that kind of interaction with NPCs. And so as a player of the game, this seemed like, whoa, that's not how we play the game. There's not really romance in these games. This is an adventure game, action oriented. So I just thought it from a player's perspective, it was out of place. But from a dramatic perspective, I understand why Garona and Lothar might have a little bit of chemistry, but it just seemed like, come on, guys, you're already forcing every single plot thing and shoehorning it into like a 1-minute clip. This is just extra. You just don't need it.
It's too much, you think?
Yeah, because she already has the sympathetic thing with the queen. She doesn't also need this tangential romance with these two guys.
I liked it, and maybe that's just because I wasn't as grounded in the game. She has a romance in the game that would be very awkward if it were to play out in the movie, because things are quite a bit different here.
Yeah.
Because what we get now, they go up to the plateau where the Guardian was posted up, and he's like in a coma, and Khadgar and Garona take him back to Karazhan.
Yeah.
And put him in the healing font, and that's when Khadgar gets his suspicions confirmed, because he sees the Guardian's eyes, and he's got fell green eyes for a moment.
Yeah, he's like, oh,
I've got to go see the Kirin Tor, and he takes off.
Yeah. He goes off to Dalaran, the name of the Kirin Tor floating city. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is when he kind of didn't force his way in, but he wasn't welcome because he swore his vows.
Yeah, they're pissed. They say, "What are you doing here?" But he says that he's really good at knowing the thing to say to shut up the person that's yelling at him.
Yeah,
and he says "fell magic," and he says "Alodai," and they're like, "All right, come on in," and they take him to go see Alodai.
And it was pretty interesting. I did not expect to see a big name actress like Glenn Close in the Warcraft movie.
That's an interesting thing because normally Alodai is not portrayed as a female. I guess.
Well, I kind of feel like in the movie Alodai is almost like genderless.
Yeah, I do. I think that is kind of the case. Alodai is, as they say, is basically the guardian before the guardian. Mm-hmm. It's like the original guardian, and they give the info dump to Khadgar about the Fel and how the Fel has corrupted Medivh. And I think that's a good use of your one big name celebrity casting.
Yeah, I might have gone with the king instead.
Oh yeah,
but who knows? I mean, if they could have got like Russell Crowe in there or something
for the king,
that might have been a better pick. But I mean, things start really going fast at this point in the movie. I guess they never are going slow.
It never slows down. So because simultaneous to this, Garona back with Medivh gives her her origin story, essentially. Mm-hmm. He tells her a story about how when he was young and he felt isolated, that he traveled to the ends of the world and he met a proud people and he met a female there. He doesn't say woman, he says female, that loved him and accepted him for who he was, but that he wasn't destined for that life and he had to leave. And if you took that moment to go to the bathroom, you never know where Garona came from, and Garona never really even puts two and two together, even though he basically tells her, "I'm your dad."
Sure. And not to naysay the movie, but if you Google that, he's not her dad.
Not in the game.
In the real lore, the canonical lore, she's actually half Draenei.
Yeah, in the game, she's half Draenei, and her and Medivh actually have a romance and a child with each other.
Yeah, which is a little bit weird that they decided to do that switcheroo in the movie.
I think so too, getting the information, but it's necessary it gives you a motivation for a noble reason why he ended up opening the portal to Draenor.
Yeah.
He was going there in search for love and companionship. He wasn't going there like, I'm going to open up the door and let the scourge of my kingdom through. He had a relatable reason for why he went there originally.
It does seem like kind of a big deal, a big thing to do because you're striking out with the ladies in your home dimension.
Well, I think what he's playing the it doesn't count when you're on vacation. He's
a geographical bachelor.
Yeah, he's a geographical bachelor. It doesn't count when you're in your home dimension, or you're not in your home dimension or on your home planet.
I guess he's a dimensional bachelor.
Yeah. So he as the guardian, he's sworn to a vow of celibacy.
Oh, but not when he's in Draenor.
What happens in Draenor stays in Draenor, or at least it's supposed to.
All those babies just living in Draenor. It's like Draenor is Vegas of Azeroth.
It's a weird. Yeah, he's playing fast and loose with the guardian rules, and going and getting falling in love in Draenor, as you do.
I guess at least it was a humanizing moment for Medivh before he
goes full evil.
Yeah, before he decides to just become Saruman the White.
No, it's say the right name. There's a particular demon that he's possessed by.
Oh, I don't even
Sargassus or something.
Sargeras.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets ultimately possessed, but that's pretty much known. If you play the video games, you know that Medivh is a fallen mage anyway. One thing that kind of struck me is back in Stormwind, Lothar is all kinds of pissed off because his son got killed, and Medivh could have stopped it.
Well, he's at the Lion's Pride getting shithoused.
Yep.
And
with the king and all that.
No, just by himself, just solo. He's closed it down on his own, and Medivh knows his daughter and his best friend have this chemistry with each other, and he says, go bang my best friend because he's really sad, and he teleports his daughter away. So, that's atypical parenting.
I don't know if I picked that up immediately, but now that you kind of explain it, yeah, I mean, that all makes sense.
He says it. He says, you want to be with Lothar. I had love like that. Go to Lothar. And, and then they console each other.
And, I mean, it kind of moves on, and Lothar goes and he busts in on the war council that they're having, or was he already there? Either way, he's ranting and raving, and he's basically telling the king that the king is totally wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And this is some complete bullshit.
King Lane is a dummy. I mean, I don't think that I'm going out on a limb to say that. I had it in my notes. He's brave but dumb.
He's just a really conservative guy. He doesn't want to do anything that's risky.
Well, and he has this kind of this absurd plan of how if they block off all these passes, then they'll be able to pin up the orcs in the Black Morass and hold them there. And what his end game is not clear. And the orcs we've seen some montages, the orcs have just been wrecking house.
Oh yeah, just completely destroyed cities.
And Lothar is like, we've got 3 battalions left, and they're about to bring an army.
They're going to bring the whole horde in. We got to go destroy the Dark Portal.
Yeah. But then, we jumped ahead a little bit because after Garona leaves, that's when Medivh, the fel comes out of him full blast, and he goes and he gets in the font, corrupts the healing font, and just fills it with fel magic, and then soul sucks Moreau.
Yeah, he kills his servitor.
Yeah, and so then he shows up at the War Council and gives them
But he looks all normal.
He looks all normal, and he gives them like a real sunshine and rainbow assessment of things. He tells them that I met with Duratan, and the rebellion's taking hold among the orcs, and they'll meet you on the road, and you guys should march off towards the Black Morass to go fight the orcs, and I'll meet you there, buddies.
Yeah, exactly. And basically Lothar's going nuts, and so the king locks him in the dungeon to cool off. He literally says to cool off. Who locks one of their top generals and their basically the hero of the kingdom? Who locks them in a dungeon to cool off?
Well, Medivh sets it up, right? He plays them both there. He knows both guys, and he starts pushing Lothar's buttons to get him to try and attack him. And that's like the final straw, right? That makes Lane lock him up.
Yeah, I really thought that was beyond believable. I didn't really like Lane's actions. Nobody with half a brain would I don't know, they would not come to the conclusion that anything other than destroying the portal that's going to bring through the army is a good idea, because that's literally the valve. You have to get rid of it. And so it took me out of the story because it was just bad. It was not believable a believable character arc.
Yeah, I guess maybe I can let that slide because it's of the way that I think Medivh he knows the buttons to push to play both of them. I think that was the thing, but I do think maybe that's a bridge too far to think that you're going to lock the commander of your army, you're going to lock him in a dungeon and then march off to war.
Yeah, just leave him behind, no biggie.
Yeah, when you cool down tomorrow, we'll let you out and you can come and meet up with us after we've already started the campaign.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna work. That's everybody who knows Lothar knows that's the way to do it. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens in here, little minutia, but I mean, kind of the big thing that happens is over on the orc side of things. There's a serious, there's a culling of the frost wolves.
Yeah, the Durotan tries to get back to the camp to get to Draka and the baby before the rest of the party gets there, but Blackhand is just right behind him, and he basically tells Blackhand, if I surrender, you spare my clan. And Blackhand doesn't make any promises, but he
sort of nods. He's sort of implied yes.
Yeah, it's if Gul'dan tells me to kill them, I will, but I don't want to kill the baby.
Yeah.
And you have this a really sad moment with Durotan and Draka, because Durotan has been like orcs, sort of like in the Game of Thrones environment. Orcs don't name their babies until after a certain age.
They're like wildlings.
Yeah, and so he didn't want to name the baby, and Draka asks them, "What should I call our son?" And he says, "Goel." And and he kind of touches her on the chin, and that's all they get for a goodbye. Like they both know right there, they're never seeing each other again. They're both gonna die.
Yeah, and he goes and he challenges Gul'dan to a traditional duel for the leadership. Meanwhile, Draka is like running away.
Yeah, well, Orgrim facilitates this, right? They take Durotan captive, and Orgrim breaks him out.
Yeah,
and Durotan says, "Well, now you're hated by both sides."
Yeah,
and Orgrim also helps Draka escape the camp.
Yeah, he's kind of this weird backstabby, helpy guy.
He's starting his redemption arc. He had a failure in his lack of vision, right? He could not see how they could work with the humans. But then he can't bring himself to take the fell from Gul'dan either. Like he just doesn't. He's really torn, and ultimately, even though it's too late, he does side with his people and tries to help them. Which, like you said, that brings us to Durotan putting on the wolf skin and going off to challenge Gul'dan to Mak'gora.
Yeah, and I thought that was actually a cool scene that was well overdue. It seemed like Durotan should have done it way before. But that's when Gul'dan is like, Blackhand is like, "Do you want me to fight this for you?" And Gul'dan is like, "No, I'll do it myself." And he takes off his warlock robes, and you see he's completely buff underneath despite being hunched over. And he has these giant bone protrusions and spikes coming out of his back.
Yeah, and this is really the first time the Horde has seen Gul'dan revealed. It's like they didn't really know what a monster the Fel had turned him into.
Yeah, he is definitely not looking like any of the orcs, and he doesn't look like an orc hero. He looks like a monster, whereas Durotan looks like a hero.
And we get a little bit of information from Blackhand there too, where Blackhand says, when the incantation begins, you need to be at the gate. And that's, like you said, Gul'dan's like, "Nah, this won't take a minute. I'm just going to settle this." So that we should bounce back over to our humans. Because the incantation is going to be coming from Medivh.
Yeah, Medivh's the one who's opening the portal to bring the Horde in.
Right.
Because he's been in cahoots with Gul'dan this whole time.
Yeah, so our boy Khadgar rides the Griffin into Stormwind, transmogrifies the guard that's watching Lothar.
It's actually polymorph. The spell. He polymorphs him into a sheep, which is a traditional World of Warcraft mage spell.
Yeah, and he lampshades.
Lasts for a minute.
Yeah, he lampshades it, and he says it lasts for about a minute.
Yeah,
and Lothar wants to go out and join the battle against the orcs, but Khadgar sets him straight, and he says, "We need to take care of Medivh first." And they teleport off to Karazhan.
Yeah, all this teleporting is really handy.
It is. Some Duncan Jones talked about this, about he wanted to. It's a vast world, but it's a vast world that you can travel rather quickly, and that's that's from the game, and he wanted to have that impression in the movie too.
Yeah, and there's a fight that happens there between them and the Golem, Khadgar, Lothar, and the Golem. It did not impress me. It was not
really?
interesting.
You don't like that fight?
Well, it was just like, man, Azeroth has so many cool monsters and beings and things. That lumbering thing made out of stone or whatever, not at all interesting compared to the vast options that he could have had. I mean, it didn't have to be Medivh's particular pet, but basically they burned screen time
on a boring
monster. And I'm just thinking to myself, holy crap, that's like even less interesting than Lothar fighting orcs. And orcs are just like big beefy dudes.
Interesting. I don't know. I didn't butt up against that, but I can see your point. It's he basically tasks the golem with citing the incantation so that he can be busy fighting with them.
Yeah.
And that's what golems are for. They do mundane tasks basically.
Sure.
And Lothar fights the golem while Khadgar fights Medivh, and really the whole thing is just an excuse to get Travis Fimmel's boots off. Because he likes being barefoot.
Why? It's so weird. Like I noted that. Like,
he's an Aussie. They're weird people.
It's like, why do you have to? Like, why was him being bootless a thing?
Well, it's the actor, not the character, right? He and it came up on Vikings a little bit too. He just likes walking around barefoot. He's that kind of nature dude or whatever, he's
the Australian Ric Flair.
Woo. Yeah, but he gets his boots stuck in the golem while he's slicing the top of its head off, and he gets to be barefoot for the rest of the movie, just for his hero moments.
Yeah, for no reason at all.
Yeah, well, it didn't land for you, but I didn't have any beef with the golem.
Well, I guess that whole scene in Karazhan was a big whiff because it was a boring scene with a boring end, and it didn't do anything for me.
So even when he goes full Sargeras and turns into a big demon?
Well, I mean, with Medivh, it's cool. I like the Medivh parts.
Okay.
But I don't like the whole golem fighting thing. It reminded me, I'm trying to think of what it reminded me of, because
a video game?
Yeah, it reminded me of a video game, or it reminded me of kind of like when in Game of Thrones when the Hound is fighting Sir Robert Strong or whatever, his brother in the
Clegane
armor.
Bowl.
Yeah, and it reminded me of that. It's just like, okay,
a lot of buildup and not a lot of payoff.
Big guy in a tower on some stairs doing some stuff. Okay. It just, I get not to be a hater because the movie was actually pretty decent up until this. I was just like, yawn.
Okay. Well, then let's just kind of brush over that. They drop the golem on top of the demonized Medivh.
Yeah.
And Khadgar casts a protective spell around Lothar and then draws all of the fell energy out of Medivh and just expels it. And I thought it was interesting. You said earlier that the area around Karazhan is really desolate.
You mean Azkaban?
Azkaban, yeah.
Karazhan,
yeah. The area around it is all desolate.
Yeah,
and now we see why.
Yeah,
right, because he blasts out that fell energy, and it just like it's like almost like a volcanic eruption. Like it wipes out the trees and just kind of decimates the area around.
Yeah, and that's cool. And I liked. I mean, I wrote here that I had higher hopes for Medivh's end, but it was kind of a little redemption at the end. It was a little Darth Vader like.
Oh yeah,
how when Vader dies, he feels bad about all the stuff he did.
I'm sorry. So sorry about the genocide.
Sorry, guys.
that was a lot of younglings.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little Vader-ish, and that's okay.
But Lothar checks Medivh's eyes real quick, or checks Khadgar's eyes real quick to make sure he hasn't turned
Yeah,
green.
he's like, do I have to take this kid's head off?
Yeah, but he wasn't. His eyes weren't green. Lothar gives him a "I'm proud of you," which is all Khadgar wants, is a daddy's love.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then hops on the griffin to go join the battle.
Yeah.
Which this was a tide turning moment back on the orc battle, because the portal closed. The horde stops coming through, and the humans kind of get a chance to rally there.
Yeah, and King Lane is on his horse and he's surrounded and they're fighting, and Garona's there with him, and they're surrounded by orcs. But now that the dark portal is closed, there's not as many orcs pouring through, or there's none pouring through, but there's still some around them, and they're fighting. And then they have their dramatic moment.
We say what? That Medivh reopens the portal, but he opens it to Stormwind instead of to Draenor, and gives the humans a way out. And they start freeing the hostages and getting as many of the Stormwind's forces and civilians back to Stormwind as they can.
Yeah, all those people that had been put in cages for future sacrifice, they were being sent through. Go back to Stormwind, you're good. And King Lane, like a big dumb hero, he refuses to go through, and he's there ushering everyone through. And they see Black Hand making one of those across the warfield stomps. He sees the king, and Garona explains he's coming to take the honor of killing you.
We skipped over Durotan's death.
Oh, we did, didn't he? I mean, I think we kind of talked about it.
We started the Mak'gora, but we didn't finish it.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because this is there's a lot of stuff happening really fast in this movie, and a lot of it happens at the same time. Durotan challenged, as we established earlier, Gul'dan to Mak'gora, and they fight, and they have a pretty epic fight. But when the incantation starts and Gul'dan needs to wrap it up, he starts doing the soul suck move on Durotan.
Yeah, he cheats, and people in the audience start calling him a cheater.
Yeah, they're not having it. That's not the orc way. They wanted a real fight where their battle supremacy is tested.
Yes.
And the crowd starts to turn on Gul'dan a little bit, and Orgrim kind of pushes it. He says, "You would follow this demon? I won't." And people want to kind of start deserting Gul'dan, and he soul sucks them too. He sucks Durotan dry in front of everyone, and then he kind of picks like 4 or 5 unlucky orcs who were going to abandon ship. He pulls their souls out, and then he juices up Blackhand and makes him into like a super orc.
Yeah, super mega orc. He grows kind of demonic muscles and all this nastiness.
Yeah, his blade hand becomes like physically merged with him, and yeah, he's really gruesome.
Yeah, and at some point in here, Lothar arrives by Griffin.
Yeah.
Like a cannonball onto the battlefield.
Well, Lothar arrives just a moment too late. Because, like you said, with his dying breath, Medivh reopens the portal to Stormwind and starts getting people out. But he's pinned underneath that golem, and he doesn't have a whole lot of life left in him. And once he quits being able to recite his incantation, the portal closes, and King Lane and Garona are left high and dry. They can't escape.
They're still on the platform. There's no way out.
And that's where what you just brought up, Blackhand is beelining towards King Lane. He's gonna claim the king,
and he's definitely gonna win the fight. I think everyone knows Lane's not a bad fighter, but he's no Lothar. And even at this point, Blackhand is too juiced on demon nitrous or whatever.
Yeah,
he's ready to go.
Blackhand is juiced up, and Lane is gassed out. Like he's been fighting his ass off, and
so
this was it.
He appeals to Garona. He says, "You kill me before he gets here, and then you'll claim the honor of killing the human king, and you can." He basically says you can work from the other side as a hero of the Horde to bring peace to the land.
Yeah, and reluctantly, She does it.
She pulls out the little pig sticker that she got from the queen, very distinctive dagger, and she stabs him in the neck.
Oh, and it's rough. She's crying. Black Hand looks pissed because he was almost there, and he's like, "Oh,
damn it, cock blocker."
Yeah, but then Gromosh Hellscream, he picks up Garona, holds her up in the air, and like
she's a hero.
They crowd surf her over to Gul'dan and say she killed the Human King, and the Horde welcomes her. She finally, after she had abandoned the Horde and had fully gone over to the humans, she gets recognized as an orc by Gul'dan and by the Horde.
Finally.
When she doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah, she just wanted romance with Lothar, but that's not to be.
It's not to be, and now Lothar shows up.
Yeah.
Just seconds too late to make a difference and help his people escape. Lothar shows up with his griffin, and they just start wrecking orcs. The griffin handles himself very well.
Yeah,
he's ripping off heads and stuff. It's excellent.
Yeah, the griffin is awesome. Lothar is awesome, but basically Lothar does get knocked out.
Well, he sees Lane's body. He sees the knife. He's heartbroken. He knows what happened. He picks up Lane's body in full armor, and goes over to the griffin. Tries to ride out of there.
Oh, and he gets grabbed.
And Black Hand grabs the griffin and pulls him out of the sky and slams him to the ground because Black Hand is getting his hero battle. Black Hand's he's on his own quest. He's not the hero of this story, but he's the hero of his own story.
Yes.
And he's not going to not get his boss battle.
And next thing you know, Lothar's waking up, and they hand him his sword, and he gets the Makara against Black Hand.
Black Hand challenges him to Makara. They size each other up, and it's very spaghetti western. We get this shot from back behind Lothar, looking at his bare feet in the sand.
Bare feet.
And he charges at Black Hand, slides low, and slices him in the goodie bag.
Yeah, they're going straight at each other, and it looks like they're going to clash strength to strength. But, of course, we know Lothar's too smart for that. He does the knee slide down through the legs. He cuts the family jewels and just kills him.
Yeah, and then
one hit.
And he finishes him. He stabs him through the back. So
that's just sort of the coup de grace.
Yeah,
at that point. It was over. He
was done after he got sliced through the gooch.
I mean, it's just like right through the pelvis. He got gnarled, and it was good. I kind of had hoped for an epic battle, but on the other hand, we'd had so many epic fights like that. It would have been another 2 minutes of film time that
they just didn't have.
That they didn't need. They didn't have, and that was cool. And then all the orcs, they they support letting Lothar go.
Yeah, they give the orc salute, right? Like
they put their fist on their chest.
They all put their fist on their chest. They all stand aside to let him. They clear a path to his griffin, and they're giving him the bro nod, and like everyone basically is impressed with Lothar as champion of the humans.
Yeah, and he gets on the griffin, and he has Lane's body, and he flies back to Stormwind.
Yeah, Gul'dan wants to
zap him.
He wants to zap him. He doesn't want him to get away, but Garona makes her pitch, and so this proves Lane's theory that having Garona on the inside is going to ultimately help them. Yeah. Garona convinces Gul'dan to let Lothar go because the orcs will turn on him if he keeps subverting the traditions.
Yeah, she basically explains that these are orcs. They need to do orc-like things, and so if you prevent that, you're gonna incur their wrath.
Yeah, and then so we're getting to the end there. We get a moment where Khadgar and Lothar have a little discussion about whether or not Garona really turned. They're not. Khadgar's not convinced, but Lothar is convinced.
Yeah. Lothar's hard-headed.
He's hard-headed and hard-hearted. You know, he's got his heart broken, and he's not gonna hold out hope that she's actually that she's a double agent. You know,
but Khadgar is so thirsty. He's willing to give her a chance.
Yeah, he just sees someone stepped out of the love triangle and he's
like,
got an opportunity.
So you're saying you're out? All right. Turns out I can teleport. I'm gonna go find her.
Yeah, and the queen gives a nice little eulogy for her fallen king, and the crowd calls for Lothar, and he holds up his champion sword and gives the for the alliance and for Azeroth. And I had in my notes like that's really the moment the alliance becomes real.
Yeah.
Up until this point, like I said, it was an alliance in name only, but now everyone's on the same page that they need to band together to
this
fight
is
the
a
orcs.
problem. Yeah, and I wrote here in my notes for the alliance exclamation point, because that's literally when they become a true alliance. And there are elves and there are dwarves in that crowd when he's giving that when he gives that that big for the alliance. So
well, there's the one last thing is we jump back over to our little orc Moses in his
I actually
basket,
wrote that down,
floating down the river, and he bumps up against the shore, and we get the moment when Tamis Foxton pulls the basket out of the water and says, "My lord, you should come look at this," and then we go to credits.
And I immediately thought, I want to see the Thrall movie.
Yeah.
Because I like Thrall. I mean, I know I like Thrall because I played the games, but I also really like his parents. I think they're both really noble, and that would be a really cool movie to see, but it's never going to get made, I don't think.
It's not to be. And so unfortunately or fortunately, that's a wrap on our deep dive, or the initial part of our deep dive.
That's the chronological. Nick likes to double deep dive things that he's super enthusiastic about, but that's cool. So kind of bringing it all together, what worked for you?
Hold on. I think let's take a little break, refill our drinks, and then we'll get into our wrap up.
We'll get our wrap up, and then we'll go ahead and I will lead a journey through the deep dive of the video games.
Oh man, we still have the video game left.
Yeah, Nick.
All right, we'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back, divers. Apparently it takes us 2 hours to deep dive a 2-hour long movie. We apologize if that was too long for you, but it's not called Nick and Dave Dip Their Toes into the Metaverse. We're committed to deep diving these.
Yeah, it's not a shallow skim. It's definitely a deep dive from time to time.
So, what worked for you about this movie?
I felt like the acting was pretty good overall. I felt like the main characters were cast with pretty good actors, like Lothar and Khadgar, Medivh, Garona. Of course, the orcs, it's a little less emotive because it's not really the actor's face as much. I mean, it's motion captured, but I felt like it was pretty darn good. Normally, I expect a really low standard from movies that are adapted from games or comic books or pop culture, because it almost feels like studios see these movies as something with a captive audience, so they don't have to splurge on high-end actors.
Yeah, that's true. This was intentionally not a star vehicle. That's something that Duncan Jones said. He didn't want a lot of movie stars, so he got a lot of people from that kind of mid-tier, people that lead TV shows, and people who do a lot of character acting.
I wonder if you went up to the dude who played Lothar, if you saw him at a like in LA or something, you're like, oh man, I loved you in Warcraft. What he would think about that. How does he look back at his Warcraft role?
Yeah, I don't know. He's one I have not seen his sort of retrospective on Warcraft. I've kind of seen some of the other people like Dominic Cooper that plays King Lane, and he's positive on it. He's not like someone that turns around and is like, yeah, I regret that. He had a good time and thinks it was a good movie, but he's done a lot of stuff since, and he's just plugging along, working actor.
So what worked for you?
The visual effects, I think, are just excellent. I don't know if they have really been matched again as far as like the monster effects, the emotion on the faces of the orcs and stuff. The world building and the look of the movie, I think it does a really, really good job of merging the sort of cartoonish aesthetic of the Warcraft games with the oversized armor and sort of exaggerated proportions. Like the wolves don't look like a natural wolf.
No,
they look like a cartoon
dire
wolf.
wolves, yeah.
And I think they did a really good job of getting the feel of the game while making it something more grounded. I mean, realistic is the wrong word because it's completely fantastical. But it's like a cartoon realism. And I really like the character design. There's a guy named Wei Wang who he came from the Warcraft fan art community, which is like massive online, and
for sure.
His artwork basically got the on the radar of Blizzard, and he actually got brought over to the States and became a Blizzard employee, and he worked a lot with Duncan Jones on like the character designs for the movie. And I think he should get a lot of the credit for how real the orcs come across.
Was he responsible for how huge they are? Because that's
I mean, they definitely look like the way he draws orcs.
Huh.
So yeah, I mean, on some level, yeah, he is responsible for beefing up all of the orcs. Anything else? Nah, the lore simplification. That was the other thing that I liked about it. I like how it takes a lot of the established lore and just kind of streamlines it, makes it...
See, lore nerds are all pulling their hair out right now. They're like, no, you ruined it.
Lore complication. That should make it more involved.
It would be like if someone was making an X-Men thing and they made Sabretooth and Wolverine the same guy.
No, but see...
You would be like, no, it's not possible.
I think it would be like if they made Sabretooth and Wolverine brothers, which they did do in the movie, and I think that was good lore simplification there
maybe
too.
You stay with the simplification streamline theory.
I think if we could tangent to the Wolverine and Sabretooth, I think having them brothers it's better than in the comic book where there's another Sabretooth-like brother that Wolverine had growing up. Combining those two characters and just making it simpler translates a lot better to the movies.
It does. I can agree with that because you don't have time to go through these crazy nuanced plot lines.
You don't need Dog Logan and Sabretooth. They can become one guy. You don't need Orgrim to be part of a different clan. You can just bring him over into the Frostwolves. I like that personally.
Yeah. Well, was there anything in this movie that didn't work for you?
Yes, there was. The insane pace of the movie. The movie just never lets the audience take a break. They never let you take a breath. They never let a scene just sit there and for you to contemplate it. You're always on to the next location. We had a hard time covering all of the little things in this movie in the same amount of time that the movie took.
Yeah.
And that's just, the movie's overstuffed, like it just has more stuff happens in it than actually fit in 2 hours.
Yeah, I almost feel like they could have cut entire plot lines. They could have cut the entire Garona role and plot line out, and it would have still been fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of, the movie could have been, you could have cut things out and the movie could breathe, or you could stretch it out, and then the movie could breathe and be a long, more epic movie like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, a 3-hour movie would have been fine, or just even a 2.5-hour movie.
Well, so Duncan Jones, his original cut of the movie was about 2:30 or 2:40. Like, it was not quite 3 hours, but if he had his druthers, it would have been stretched out a little bit. And I would have been there. I would have enjoyed that personally.
I wonder if they'll ever put out a variant cut. Probably not.
No, they won't. And the reason being is even though that stuff is shot, the visual effects are cost prohibitive.
Oh yeah, I hadn't
So
thought of that.
yeah, when you have all these digital assets, as they call them, that you would have to create, it would be another $30 million to get that 40 minutes of footage in there on a movie that is considered a critical failure.
They could make $30 million on a re-release of a director's cut. You think?
I mean, I think so. There's a few.
I mean, they could do that in China alone.
And there's some behind the scenes stuff that we could just we'll dabble into this just a little bit. So Legendary Pictures, they produce movies and they partner with bigger studios. This movie changed hands a couple of times. It started out, Legendary had a production deal with Warner Brothers, and it changed over to Universal while they were producing the movie.
Yeah.
And then ultimately Universal released it. And then Legendary has gone back to partnering with Warner Brothers at this point. Something Duncan Jones said, none of the people that he knew at Legendary work there anymore.
Huh.
So that's part of why this series has just ended, is that the people that currently work at Legendary aren't invested in it. Like it's from a earlier version of the company, basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's basically, he had 2 more movies plotted out that he's talked about on Twitter, that they're just never going to come because there's no momentum, no interest in doing it.
Well, and with World of Warcraft's money slowly reducing over time as the game ages and ages, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's something. This is not a problem for me, but if I would get into what I think other people had a problem with, I think a lot of the Warcraft fans, this is not the Warcraft world that they're interested in. It's much earlier. It's like prehistory to their world.
Not only is it prehistory, which could still be moderately relevant, it's pre-cataclysm, which happened in the game, which dramatically changes everything about the world. And I'll talk about that when I go through the games. But basically, this is ancient history, and there's no interest in ancient history.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to our final thoughts on this, and then we'll segue over to the game.
I didn't give my what didn't work, but I'll just do that.
Sorry.
I'll just do that real quick. The fight choreography was bad.
Oh, you thought so?
Anytime you saw something that was actually, like nuanced, other than orcs leaping at guys, it was just not good. Obviously, the actor who played Lothar, who I keep forgetting his name,
Travis Fimmel.
He's obviously a skilled stage combatant. He has a lot of experience with it, and so his scenes are good. But the lady who played Garona, she did not have a lot of training, and they clearly didn't put her through one of those boot camps for her scenes. There were a lot of other moments when I was watching the sword fighting, the footwork. It seemed very clear that they did not know how to do stage combat. They weren't a trained stage fighter. It's kind of like when a musician watches an actor pretend to play the guitar and they can't. It was just like that, watching these stage actors that don't know how to sword fight.
And as I kind of play it back in my head, I can see that. So Travis Fimmel, obviously coming from Vikings, several seasons of that, he's got a lot of time with a sword in his hand.
Yeah, and stage combat's its own thing.
Yeah, but then say Dominic Cooper as King Lane, he doesn't. And you're right, it shows.
It was poor.
Yeah. Interesting. The orcs fighting is good, but they're CG assets.
They're just sort of doing
cartoons.
Orc-like things, and that's totally cool. So as far as my final thoughts on the movie, it's way better than I thought it had any right to be, being a prehistory of a 15-year-old game.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't 15-year-old when it came out. It was a 12-year-old game at that point. It was really cool seeing all of the settings that I've played in the game on the screen. I liked that. And those NPCs come to life. I really liked that. So overall, I give this movie 3.25 stars.
That is actually the same rating that I would probably give
Wow.
it. And I think of this movie very much in the same way that I think of Dune, as sort of something that was over ambitious, didn't quite make its own goalpost, but I just really like it anyway. Like, despite its flaws, I'm thoroughly engaged in the world, and like Dune, it made me want to go to the book, and this movie was that same way. It made me want to go explore the lore more and get deeper into it. And it's I guess I've become something of a Warcraft convert because of this movie.
Yeah, we got to get you playing the game at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
So let's go ahead and talk about the games. And I'm not going to do a Wikipedia entry of listing all the games. I'll just give you a little overview. And then I'll just talk about my own story with it, because I have a lot of hours in these games. So basically, the first Warcraft game came out in 1994 called Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. And it was basically a real-time strategy. You're building up your base, you're making units, and you're attacking other places. And it was actually really popular, especially its sequels. Like Warcraft 2 came out in 95, and then it had an expansion in 96, and eventually it became kind of a classic that they did a remastered BattleNet edition in 99. And then they were working on Warcraft 3, still another real-time strategy game. And it came out in 02. And it was extremely popular, and then they made the Frozen Throne expansion to that in 03. Now, that was kind of the last of the real-time strategies for a while, until this year they put out Warcraft 3 Reforged. I have not played it. I just got that on the internet, but I did see it in the general thing, like people playing these Warcraft real-time strategies. I did play them. I started with 2. I wasn't that into it, I'll be honest. I was just like, this is so slow. I have attention deficit. I can't, blah.
I remember all of that stuff coming out because it was advertised heavily in comic books. So I would see those ads. And this is where, like I mentioned earlier, my problem with keeping Warcraft and Warhammer separate in my head came from. And maybe this is a little apocryphal, but Blizzard started developing a Warhammer game before Warcraft.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was going to be a licensed game. And I think a lot of the visual elements of Warhammer made it into Warcraft.
Yeah, the Empire versus the Greenskins, that whole deal. So basically, in 04, World of Warcraft dropped kind of at the end of the year. So it really was an 05 game is when the mania started, and it got huge. Like it took over, and it just annihilated EverQuest, which was the big thing.
Oh wow, forgot about that.
And it just it got millions and millions of subscribers. In the scene, they're just called subs. And then in 07, there was the Burning Crusade, which was a big trip to the Outlands where you actually get flying mounts. Pretty cool. Wrath of the Lich King happened after that, where you go to Northrend. And Northrend is where the Lich King sets up his Ice Crown Citadel, and you end up raiding it. And those 3 expansion, original, and then Burning Crusade, and then Frozen Throne, I'm sorry, not Frozen Throne, Wrath of the Lich King, are basically thought of as the classic trilogy. They're all built on the same engine, they're all built on the same game, and in my opinion, it's the golden age of World of Warcraft.
So, Outlands. Catch me. So is Outlands distinct from Draenor? Those are not the same place.
Yeah, they're different. You go through this crazy portal, and you end up getting there, and there are different orcs, kind of like brown-skinned orcs are there, and there's all kinds of demons and stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't super steeped in the lore during that time, but they essentially are. It's an alien world. It is not on Azeroth.
So I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think Outlands is Draenor after it's fully corrupted?
I have no idea, but I can tell you that you do go to Draenor in a later expansion. So
Okay,
maybe
I'm
not.
sorry. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead.
It's okay. But I loved those 3 expansions. I played them so hard, and I'll get to that. After that, they did Cataclysm, where they blew up the world, basically. They remade it on a whole basically new game engine. I don't know the behind-the-scenes stuff, but they brought flying mounts to all of Azeroth. You couldn't fly anywhere before. And so they had to redesign everything from that perspective of players can go anywhere, not just you're locked in by these mountains and whatnot.
So because in the movie, which takes place before the very first game, we have griffins.
Yeah.
Were there griffins and they just couldn't get off the ground before?
Oh, no.
Griffins come in here with this expansion.
No, griffins have been there since the beginning, but you don't own a griffin. You go to a flight master in a major city like Stormwind, and you pay him a few silver, and the griffin will take you to any flight path on the map that you have personally unlocked. Think Skyrim.
But you can't pilot your own griffin.
No.
Okay. All right, I'm with you.
Yeah, that comes in Burning Crusade. You can pilot your own, and every race has its own type of flyer and whatnot. Like humans have griffins, and elves have hippogriffs, and etc.
What do orcs have?
Oh man, they have these wyvern things.
Okay.
They're pretty cool. And so then after that, Cataclysm blows everything up. You get to play goblins, and all of that. And I played that, but I'll be honest, I did not like it so much. And then after that came, in my opinion, the full Shark Jump, Miss Pandaria, Kung Fu Panda, the WoW experience. Now, I did not play it when it came out, but later on I did. I just wanted to play the story. And most of my friends who did play it on launch, they said it was dope, but I didn't really like it. Aside from the imagery, I love, Asian fantasy style, and I thought that was cool. Then it moves on to Warlords of Draenor, where you go to Draenor. And
But you go Draenor in the past.
I believe so, yes. And I did not like it. I played that one, and I will say to anyone who's a hardcore WoW gamer, I was hardcore all the way up until Kata, and then I quit, and I only reactivated my account for new expansions to play the story, and then I would cancel it when I was done with the story. Turns out they were all crap. Legion after that, crap. Battle for Azeroth after that, crap.
Oh man, but the cinematics for Battle for Azeroth look great. Because I've watched a ton of this stuff on YouTube.
So here's the deal. The cinematics for every expansion are amazing. Their cinematic teams, oh man, they're so good. That's why I even came back for Warlords of Draenor, because it seems so cool to go fight the Iron Horde and all this stuff, and you're just like, whoa, this seems awesome. And then you go in and you start playing and you realize, holy crap, they made Farmville. You get your own little town where you build the buildings and you make the crops and you do all this stuff. And they added Pokemon, where you go around and you find battle pets in the world and you bring them to these and you fight other people's battle pets. They literally made it. That expansion was the Farmville Pokemon expansion.
That's Warlords of Draenor?
Yes.
Okay.
It was trash. I'm sorry if you're a hardcore WoW player, but I did not like it. So moving on from there, that's all the WoW. I mean, Shadowlands is in beta right now, the new one. Also a very cool cinematic. Almost got me to re-up for retail. Not going to do it. There was a card game that came out in 2014, and you know my history with Magic the Gathering. I used to play that like a crackhead. I loved that game. So I played Hearthstone. Loved it. After a while,
was it real cards or was it it's digital cards?
Digital card game, which is great because you have unlimited opponents at any given time. And then they released it on mobile so you can play it on your phone too. Pretty fun. A little bit of a money sink, just like any card game.
But you don't get to have like binders and binders full of cards.
That's true.
You don't have the cost and inconvenience of housing cards.
I will get there with the offline games. They did make one.
Oh man!
So in 2015, they put out Heroes of the Storm, which is a MOBA, which is a multiplayer online battle arena, which you play a little character and you play on a team against another team, and
so
it's
like
not
like Overwatch.
No, it's not like a fighting game at all.
Oh,
It's
okay.
more like playing. MOBAs were originally developed off of a fan creation with Defense of the Ancients, I think. Dota. Man, I'm probably getting this totally wrong. Go ahead and at me on Twitter if I'm wrong. There's. And it was built off the Warcraft engine, the Warcraft 2 engine, I think, could be 3. But basically, you're on a map and you're going around and you're fighting monsters. Like you're just, it's like a little dude, and you only have a few abilities.
Yeah.
And you fight with groups. And this MOBA genre has gotten huge and technical. League of Legends is kind of the big one.
Oh, okay. So I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Heroes of the Storm is Blizzard League of Legends.
So if we go, well, when things are open and stuff again, if we went to an esports bar,
Yeah.
we could watch people playing those games.
Not Heroes of the Storm. It never got as popular. They'd be
Okay.
playing League of Legends or Dota 2.
Okay.
The
Do
other
people
big
play
one.
people play Warcraft competitively though?
Oh
right?
yeah, they play the PvP element, the arenas where
Okay.
you're fighting other people, and they also play Hearthstone. They've got a pretty big esports scene where they have big tournaments for money and leagues and stuff, and it's fun. And then finally, the last big title to come out is the one that I play the most, which is WoW Classic. Came out in 2019, a reboot of the original World of Warcraft game using the original graphics and the original interface and all of that. They have modern back-end technology for servers and stability and whatnot, but you're playing it old school, and that's what I play. And it's
not remastered graphics. It's
not at all.
It's just the old. Interesting.
Old AF. And I'll get into that in a minute. But basically, there's a huge host of offline games that they made. Multiple board games. I went down a rabbit hole on this one. There's a lot of them. There's a tabletop role-playing game made by Sword and Sorcery Studio, which is just an imprint of White Wolf.
Huh. Interesting.
Which I'm a big White Wolf fan.
Is it the White Wolf system? Like it's all.
No. It's its own system.
That's
and
too
then,
bad, because then we could cross-platform and play orcs
or
and
vampires or werewolves. Okay, perfect.
I guess they're worgen if we keep it on brand.
True. There was a miniatures game, a little strategy miniatures game, kind of like like I was describing Malifaux earlier. They had a trading card game, World of Warcraft TCG. Big. They did a lot of tournaments for it, lots of players, lots of money, but actually most of the assets and stuff for that game actually got rolled into the digital card game, and they canceled it. It's not in existence anymore.
Interesting.
There are more than 20 novels. There are many comics, many manga style trade paperbacks and whatnot. And then there was for a while a World of Warcraft magazine, kind of like Nintendo Power, but for Blizzard games.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of like the franchise. Hopefully I didn't go into that like you're reading an article, but basically kind of the meta here is that they have touched on almost every major video game genre. They haven't done first person shooters yet, but it's pretty ubiquitous, and it's huge right now.
Why isn't there a sort of Skyrim style single player sandbox game?
Well, this is purely speculation, but because Skyrim does it well, you don't really need another grim and gritty sandbox game like Elder Scrolls. Warcraft is the opposite of that. It's cartoony.
Right.
It's theme parky. Like they lead you from place to place. They tell you what to do. There are NPCs. You can ask for directions to places, and they just put an icon on your map so you know where to go in the cities and whatnot. It's not even the same genre, and I don't think Blizzard wants to invest the money in a genre that is not going to pay a lot of money because someone else is already doing it well. They've developed titles for years and years and then ended up scrapping them because they felt like it wouldn't be a AAA. It wouldn't be a massive success like all their other titles have been. I mean, and then if this title isn't massively successful, they stop supporting it. Like Heroes of the Storm isn't getting updated anymore. It's over. Whereas World of Warcraft continues.
That seems like a plausible explanation. That makes sense.
Yeah, they're the cartoony, theme parky, fun fantasy game. They are not grim and gritty.
Yeah, I find myself, especially now that I've read some of the books, or read in air quotes because they were audiobooks, but as I've gotten deeper and deeper into this world, I do want to go and play around in it, but that MMO play style just like isn't really appealing to me.
Yeah.
Like I mean probably if I force myself past the hump and like get used to the controls and everything, I probably would find myself enjoying it.
It's like Red Dead.
Yeah, I just have to like sit down and force myself to do it. But Warcraft has this really weird reputation as simultaneously being like something that is credited with saving people's lives and ruining people's lives.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that's just it can just dominate your time.
Yeah. So if you were someone who was depressed and isolated, sometimes it gives those people a sense of community, it seems like. Oh
yeah, for sure.
And they make real world connections out of it. But then there's also people that like forsake all their real world connections and like the game takes over their lives. So it's a really interesting mix.
Well, it's weird that you bring up that connection, that social thing, because that's what actually brought me to World of Warcraft. I was never a fan of the franchise. Remember, I told you I did not like the Warcraft real-time strategy games.
Right.
So I was playing Star Wars Galaxies, which is a sandbox MMO where you could literally go out and do anything, survey planets for mineral deposits, and go hunting rare beasts and for different types of fibers and skins and things. I was into that game big.
Yeah, I remember that.
As I've alluded to in the past in the podcast, I was in the military, and somewhere around 2003, I deployed to the Middle East. I was an officer in a guild in my Star Wars game, and I talked to those people over voice chat all the time. They were my friends. I had real life friends, of course, like you and other people, but I played that game a lot. And when I came back from the Middle East and I was able to get connected again, I logged in, I re-upped my subscription to the game, and my guild had completely moved on. And a friend that I had made, I logged into the old, back then we were using a program called Ventrilo to talk. I logged into our old Ventrilo for the guild, and there were people in there talking, some of my old friends. And they said, oh yeah, we all moved on to World of Warcraft together. We're a guild, and you should come, and you'll be an officer again, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh man, all my friends are over there, and I'm walking around in Star Wars, and it's just a ghost town. And the game had changed so much. They had changed everything what I liked about it, and made it from a freestyle class skill-based system to a class-based system, trying to copy WoW. And so I got an account, and I was like, I'll give it a try. And so I didn't choose my faction, and I didn't choose my server. It was all chosen for me by my old guild, and they rolled an alliance guild on a PvE server, player versus environment, so not player versus player. So it's kind of known in the community as a Care Bear server, where you don't fight unless you want to.
Oh, interesting. So that's something I should know about if I was going to try and play.
And so they were on a PvE server, and I was always a big PvPer back in the day. And so I was like, whatever, though. All my friends are, on Star Wars, I was a big PvPer. So I played, and I made a Night Elf Hunter because, I thought it might be fun. I didn't do any research, and it turned out, it was fun, but it wasn't that fun. And by the time I got near the end of the leveling system to 60, it turned out my guild was really casual, and a lot of the people who I used to play with hardcore on Star Wars, they barely ever logged in, and they didn't play that often at all. And right about then, Blizzard was relaunching a new wave of fresh servers in order to combat server overcrowding. So characters don't transfer between servers. Once you're on a realm, you're on it. Your character is there. Back in the day. Nowadays, you can pay to transfer.
Okay.
But so my server was crowded, and I also came a little late to the game because I was deployed. I came in 2005, probably about 4 months after launch. people, one of my real life friends was like, hey, dude, let's roll on this fresh server and let's play the Horde. And I was like, all right. You had me at PvP server. And so we rolled and I played an orc rogue. And that's really, like, I always consider myself for the Horde, because even though my technical first character was on an Alliance server, he didn't ever get it to 60, and I kind of was casual. With my orc, I was hardcore. I loved orc. I loved rogue. I'm very zug.
So that's something I've heard on Warcraft podcasts and stuff as I've been exploring. What does Zug mean?
Oh, it's just sort of like a positive thing. Like
okay.
it's just like a positive exclamation. Like if you pull out some beers from the cooler, I could be like Zug. You know, like it's just a good thing.
Yeah.
And so
because what's Loktor Ogar is victory or death.
Yeah.
And so, like,
there's all these sort of, like, you say all these Horde things because the NPCs say them to you all the time. Like when you're selling stuff at a vendor or whatever, and then you click off the vendor, he'll be like Zug, you know, because good deal or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was always into that, and we played hardcore, and I loved it, but I was not a raider. I had done a couple of raids, and if you don't know what a raid is, it's like 40 people all get together, and you go and you kill massive bosses that you cannot...
The groups are that big.
It's literally 40 people, yeah.
Wow.
I was playing in a 40-man raid last night. And so, yeah, I didn't raid a lot because I didn't have a huge guild. We were like PvPers, because in raids, you get loot from the bosses, better equipment, but in PvP... as you kill people and you earn your honor points, you raise in rank and you can buy PvP gear.
Okay.
So it's good. It's not quite as good as raid gear until the highest echelons, in which case it's very, very good. I never made it to rank 14. I made it to rank 10, which is called champion. But you got to understand, in order to make it to rank 14, you basically have to grind PvP games.
So how does that... So do you just like... Because if you start up the game... everyone's got a little thing over their head. So those are all other players. Like those are people out in the world, unless they're an NPC.
Yeah.
Do people just roll up and just like gank people, or like how does that work? How does PvP work?
So if you're on a PvP server, which is the most open rules, which is what I play on right now, and back then, is if you're in a newbie zone, a low-level zone, the players native to that zone, so like Dorotar outside of Orgrimmar or Elwyn Forest outside of Stormwind, those are low-level zones. And so the Alliance players in Elwyn Forest are not flagged for PvP. The Horde cannot kill them. But any Horde that goes there is automatically flagged for PvP, and any Alliance can attack them.
Okay. So
if you attack, you flag yourself for PvP, so then they can attack you back.
Gotcha. And so that is it like an icon that's visible over the person?
Your name turns red, aside from me. If you're not attackable, it'll be green or yellow. But basically, if it's a red name, you can kill them. And then once you get past the lobby levels, everybody is flagged for PvP. And...
even your own faction?
No, not your own faction, but you can fight your own faction members by dueling. You go up to them and you right-click their name, and duel is an option, and it drops a dueling flag on the ground, and then they have the option to say yes or no.
That's what Durotan did when he goes and challenges Gul'dan.
Exactly.
He throws down the Frostwolf's flag on the ground.
Yeah, he straight up duels him.
Man, see, there's even still, I've watched this movie multiple times and wrote a book about it now.
Yeah.
And I've just got a new Easter egg.
And so basically you can duel your own people, but as you kill people, you earn honor points and you go up in rank. It's actually really complicated how the ranks go because there's brackets, but I'm not even going to get into that because it's boring.
Let's not get interesting now.
Let's not get. Yeah, you're right. We've done this for long enough. Let's stay boring. But anyway, I was a PvPer, and then when Burning Crusade came out, the first expansion, I re-rolled as a Blood Elf Paladin. I kept my rogue as a kind of a casual character. I didn't play it that often. Because the Horde got paladins when the Blood Elves came, and I played that. And then I was mostly an arena player, PvP still, through the Burning Crusade. I did a few raids with friends, but then when Lich King came out, that was my first expansion where I became a PvE player. My roommate at the time invited me to come and join his guild, and by then paid server transfers were available, so I paid the $10 and moved my character over to his guild, to his server.
The elf?
The elf.
Okay.
I actually paid again to move my rogue too. And then I ended up joining his guild, and they were raiders. And so I did all of the raid content. And by Wrath of the Lich King, it was no longer 40 man. It was 25. They had reduced it for logistical, whatever. It's easier to get 25 people together. And I played, and I loved it. And I will not try to be totally modest, but my guild was really good. We got everything down on heroic or hard mode.
Should you shout your guild name out?
Oh yeah, I'm not a member of the guild anymore, but my old guild back in Wrath of the Lich King was Hellions on the server Cenarian Circle. And it was a really good guild, and it was led by a really competent lady named Chiyu, who was just this really smart lady who got us through all the hard mode content, and it was awesome. I had a great time, and I had all the best in slot gear. That's kind of a gamer term for what is the absolute pinnacle item for every slot on your character sheet. That's called the best in slot. I had the best in slot for every paladin item for my character. And I was, for the nerds out there, I was, of course, everybody's dual spec. I was Retribution and Holy. And so I could either be a damage dealer or a healer, and I had the best in slot for both kits. I preferred to be Retribution, but on some bosses, it's paladins were the preferred healer because of just the way they heal. So I would be the healer. A healer in the 25 man. Anyway, of my favorite instances, I loved Ulduar the best, and then Icecrown Citadel the second best. And like I said before, I won't sit here and nerd about my past accomplishments, but after Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, I just found it to be a shit show, and I didn't really play WoW on any real level. I went from being a hardcore 20 to 30 hour a week player to nothing. And it was weird because I had so much free time.
That's something that's always has kept me out of the WoW world, because I've always been curious about it. Because, like you said before, I love monsters, and it's a monster-rich environment, and so I see the art and stuff, and I go like, ooh, I wanna explore this, and then I hear my friends like you and other people talk about like, oh, I have a raid scheduled tonight, and I need to be home on this evening from this hour to this hour, or I'm going to get kicked out of my guild.
Oh God, no one's going to kick you out of your guild. But I mean, like, little known fact about Nick, he doesn't like obligations.
Yeah, so it's like I play a mobile game on my phone called Marvel Contest of Champions, and I'm in an alliance on that.
Yeah,
I have been kicked out of many alliances for lack of participation. I finally washed up in one that was casual enough that they never kick me out, but they're actually too casual for me.
Oh.
Wait, I mean, I won't shout them out because I don't want to disrespect them on the radio, because I really appreciate them not kicking me out of the alliance.
Yeah. So I mean, I joined so after that, I started playing on private servers, which is a whole thing. They are pirate servers running the old original game.
What we call it? Vanilla WoW, right?
Vanilla WoW is what it's called. And so I was a vanilla private server player, which is kind of the nerdiest of the nerd, because I was not willing to play the modern content, or retail as we call it.
Very hipster.
Because man, you're right. It is hipster. I hated retail though, because it sucks so bad. And I was a vanilla private player where I played primarily a druid. And I really liked my druid during that time. I was a Tauren druid for the Horde.
Well, brought up the Taurens. So here's something just as an outsider exploring this universe, Does Warcraft ever get in trouble for like
Their blatant appropriation?
Yes, that's exactly it. The Taurens have this weird pan-Native American thing where they have totem poles and teepees,
feathers and everything.
Yeah, and the trolls have
straight up Jamaican style accents.
Yeah, there's very nebulous Caribbean accents.
Yeah.
With Aztec architecture. Like
there have been criticisms of both factions. And as the game has progressed into modern retail stuff, they've really gotten away from that. They've sort of changed it. But since I play Classic now, it's all old school. They didn't change any of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I played on Lights Hope and Chronos, which were private, Chronos 3 private servers, and I was in a raid guild. It was really fun. But then when Classic launched, there's no point in a private server vanilla player because now you got the real deal with a big audience, no bugs, nothing.
And I like that as a business model where rather than persecuting these people that are running the private servers, they went and sought that piece of the market. They gave them the thing that they wanted.
And WoW subscriptions, because when you subscribe, you get Classic and Retail. It's one subscription and it's the same price. The subscriptions overall just boomed. They went through the roof with Classic launch. People have been hungry for it, and I was one of them. So my wife and I, we both play, and we both played Horde for over a decade. We were for the Horde. She was Forsaken. I was mostly Zug, but we decided to go with Alliance because we'd never played through any of the role play, none of the stories, none of the plots. Yeah, we'd never done it, and so we were like, we want to play sort of a new game. So we're Alliance now.
Let's pause for a second. What are the Forsaken?
Oh no, the Forsaken are undead.
Okay, yeah. So they're like the zombie, but
they're called the Forsaken though.
They have the queen, like their boss,
Sylvanas, who's a banshee.
She's a banshee. She's not an elf.
Correct. She's a banshee.
But
she's an undead elf, which is a banshee.
Oh, okay. So, because I was looking at her and thinking she was some sort of like blood elf or something.
Yeah,
because she's got the crazy elf eyebrows.
Yeah, she was an elf. She's undead now. She's a banshee.
Okay.
So she is the leader of, or I'm only talking for Classic. I'm sure she's probably in retail. She's probably dead by now, but whatever, because they kill everybody. But in Classic, so I was really close to rolling an undead rogue or an undead warrior. But we ended up deciding to go with Alliance, and I have a hunter and a rogue at 60.
What race?
With full raid gear in both of them. My hunter is night elf because the only other option is dwarf, and I play on a PvP server, and night elves can stealth. They have a shadow meld ability, so when you're running through a zone and you see horde like far away, you dip off the road and shadow meld and they just run right by. It's just a time-saving mechanism. Also, as a hunter, you can stealth. You can have a pet cat, which can also stealth, and then you can sick your cat on them, and then you can wind up a big aimed shot and blam, straight out of stealth, ambush style with a bow. It's really nice.
Is the cat a mount? Like it's like a battle cat?
No, I'm a night elf, and all night elves ride cats as their basic mount.
Okay.
But you can, as a hunter, you can tame almost any animal in the world. You could tame a gorilla, you could tame a turtle, you could tame a flamingo.
Yeah, and ride it?
No,
Okay.
They're your battle pet, basically. They fight with you, and they're very powerful compared to other battle pets, which are just little toys. But basically, yeah, hunter pet is a big part of their class. And so I played a night elf hunter all the way up, and he's all right now, because they're phasing the release of the raids. Blackwing Lair is the current raid, and my hunter is fully Blackwing Lair geared, pretty much. And now I've actually and my rogue, I just kind of switched from the hunter being in the front seat and the rogue being the alt to the rogue is now the main and the hunter is the alt.
And they're both blood elf or night elves?
No, my rogue is a human.
Your rogue is a human.
And the reason I went with a human is this is very min-maxy and not story-like at all. But I definitely wasn't going to play night elf because I'd already experienced the whole night elf starting zones. But humans get a sword bonus. They're really good with swords.
Okay.
And I wanted to play a sword rogue. So I figured, why go against game design? Just go with it. And so that's what I did. And it actually turns out to be a really powerful choice for a damage character, DPS. So that's what I play. My guild is... we've got all content on farm, meaning we down every boss every week in all the raids. And the thing is just like you were talking about, how some guilds are casual, some guilds are not. My guild is, we like to call ourselves a semi-hardcore guild, meaning we have a core of hardcore players that do the raids, but we are casual friendly. We will invite anyone. You can be a member of our guild. You can come hang out. And if we have some open raid slots, which is pretty often because 40 people and, you know, vacations happen and stuff. If you're on and you want to come with the core team, you're in. You come and you'll get some free gear, because most of us have everything we need except for like 2 to 3 items that are really, really rare. But most of the bulk of the things that drop we'll just hand off to the casual guild members.
Do they just sort of like populate on the ground and everyone kind of free for alls to get them, or do you each get individual loot?
In retail WoW, everyone gets individual loot because it's a Care Bear game.
Okay.
But in Classic, it's on the boss's corpse, and the raid leader, before the boss is engaged, can set the loot mode. Either it can be a free-for-all where the first person that clicks it gets to pick up all the items, or it can be group loot where it all pops up on your screen when it and you choose one button or the other. There's one button that is a need button, meaning I need that item, or another button that is a greed button, meaning I want it but I don't need it. And so if you're going to equip it, you need it. If you're just going to like sell it or put it in your bank, you greed it.
Okay.
But most raids, 99% of all raids, go with a master looter system where the guild leader or the master or the raid leader, they get to distribute the loot how they see fit. And usually guilds have like some sort of democratic method, like points spreadsheet. You've been to this many, you know, there's a ton of different ways guilds do it, but oftentimes it's just like they call it a loot council, where the officers just decide. They're just like, okay, let's say this big sword drops. Okay, it's a 2-handed sword, probably going to go to a warrior, maybe a hunter who can use them, or a paladin who's a damage dealing paladin, or a retribution paladin. And we just decide, oh yeah, such and such hasn't got a piece of loot in a while, and it would be a huge upgrade for them. It's really going to help them, and they're very deserving. They've been here every week, and etc. So we just master loot it to them. That's called loot council, and that's the most common. My guild does that for old content, not for new content. We do this round robin style called Suicide Kings, where you basically, it's just sort of a list. It's a little more complicated than we need to get into. My wife plays a druid. She's a healer, and I play stealth class, or a stealth capable class with my hunter, who can run in, feign death, shadow meld, etc. So we get into some stealthy shenanigans because druids can turn into a cat and sneak. And so it's really cool. And basically my World of Warcraft journey started because I was playing in a social guild. And if this game was just a Skyrim, I never would have played it, because I got dragged in by people. Every step of the way has been people. When I started, when I re-rolled to the Horde and played there, that was a friend. When I went over and got into raiding on my paladin, that was a friend. It's all been a social experience for me, and it's been very fun. I've oftentimes been officers in guilds because I like to, you know, help people out, facilitate things, and it's just, some people are spreadsheet gamers where maximizing every little thing is what brings them to the game. For me, it's the social aspect, and that's probably not a surprise because you know me.
Yeah.
But that's kind of been my journey in World of Warcraft. But this game is just growing. They're releasing more. They're releasing the Burning Crusade Classic, and then probably Wrath of the Lich King Classic. The first 3, the original Classic trilogy, will all be released, and they're gonna sell millions of dollars worth of subscriptions.
That's all really interesting, and then that's sort of that Wrath of the Lich King. That's where you feel like that's the end of the classic era.
Yeah, that is. I mean, clearly because Cataclysm literally blows up the world and,
Okay.
and everything. So it's a clean cut. That's where everything stops.
So is there a particular character? Because my stereotype of WoW players is they have one character that they have just been playing for 20 years.
Yeah.
Who is your main character out of all of these ones that you identify with as your WoW character?
Probably the one I spent. Oh, that's tough because I mean it could be the Paladin because I played it for so long, but I play Alliance now. I could have re-rolled a Paladin, but I didn't. I re-rolled a Rogue, and that's the one I do. I consider myself, if anything, I'm a Rogue player.
So you're a Rogue player, regardless of faction.
Yeah, I love my Orc Rogue. I love my Human Rogue. They're both great. They're arguably people say the Undead Rogue is better on the Horde, but I like Orcs. And I thought their racial abilities were good, and I really enjoyed the character. It was really fun. So I still have it. Obviously, you don't lose your old characters. I have them all on my account. Just they're on retail servers. You can't backward port them. So I now am doing the Alliance. And so that's pretty much all I've got for the video games. If you don't have any questions, we can wrap this one up.
Do I have anything else? Have you gone to any of the conventions like BlizzCon?
I have not. I really wanted to go to BlizzCon for launch of Classic WoW, but it was not to be. And then this year's, which would have been for a big classic thing, COVID cancel. So no.
Brutal. Is it always in the same place, or does it bounce around?
Yeah, it's always in California at the Blizzard. They have
at
a
the
thing,
HQ.
yeah,
Okay.
a whole events thing.
Well, if I don't really have any more questions. So if you want, that's a wrap on Warcraft. The game. Welcome back, divers. We're in our final segment where I turn to Dave and I ask him, what are you into right now?
Well, I've talked about a lot of things that I'm into as far as Warhammer 40K, taking up a lot of my my quarantine time with painting and whatnot, but I don't want to retread that. The other thing that I've really been into that I haven't mentioned today is I've been playing a lot of music, a lot of guitar, and I actually decided to get a new guitar.
Ooh, another guitar. How many guitars do you have?
I think this will be number 15. And I know that sounds absurd to some.
Completely reasonable amount of guitars.
Yeah. Well, I can explain. I have a lot of guitars that I don't really play because they hold some sort of sentimental value. Like and I included my basses and my acoustics in that number. My very first bass that I ever got. Well, I'm not a bass player in a band anymore, but I still have that bass. And it's not that high end of a bass, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I also have a nice professional quality bass that I play sometimes when I need that. So I'm not getting rid of that, but I don't play it that often. I have a nice acoustic. I have a crappy acoustic for traveling and whatnot. I also have an acoustic that was gifted to me that I'm not going to get rid of because it was a gift. I also have a broken guitar that I need to fix that I would sell, except for it used to belong to one of our friends that I rescued from a pawn shop, and I'm not going to get rid of it because it has a historical value. So pretty much every guitar I have has a story like that, and I have gotten rid of a lot of guitars that had no story. They did not spark joy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up the Marie Kondo thing because a guitar is something, I imagine, it absorbs energy, right? Like you hold it and you put energy into it. So in that sort of Japanese Shinto way of looking at things, there's a lot of juice stored up in a guitar.
Yeah, like my Les Paul, I could never get rid of it. It was my first top tier kind of professional level guitar, and I played it on so many of my recordings historically, like everything from Mary Shelley, all of my Barrowland stuff has had that guitar's fingerprints on it. And so one thing that the band has been recently kind of experimenting with is expanding our sonic range. And we're looking...
Bringing in a saxophone?
Yeah, saxophone, big saxophone. No, I am getting a 7-string guitar so that I have that extra lower string. It's basically another 4th down. Our bass player already has a 5-string bass, a couple of them, and he's been doing that. And so our other guitar player, Jay, he bought a 7-string, like a really nice comparison. Played that a little bit. It was really nice, really great guitar. Just decided I might want this option, and it's been something I've been wanting, an extended range instrument for a long time. So I finally pulled this trigger on it. I decided not to go with 8. I think that's kind of delving into the basses territory. And we also have a keyboard, so that we kind of have that sonic range covered. I don't really need to do that. So I got the 7-string, and I ordered a new one from Kiesel Guitars.
Oh, so that's who you decided to go with.
That's who I went with. I almost bought a Solar. But Solars are all from the factory. They're all identical. They're all built in an Indonesian factory, and they're really good. They're very highly QA'd before they sell them. But they are cookie cutter guitars. They're cookie cutter guitars for metalheads, and that's cool. But Kiesel Guitars is built in Southern California. I visited their showroom. They're I believe they're in Escondido.
Yeah, outside San Diego.
Yeah, they're very nice, handmade, American-made, top-tier materials sourced by the owners, the Kiesel family. They've been in business for a long time. They're just a really solid company. I already have a Kiesel. My wife got me one as a gift, and I love it to death. And so I'm getting the same body shape, but this time it's going to have a different wood top. I got a Buckeye burl top, and I got a different fretboard material, and I also got another string. I'm sticking with the Evertune bridge. I love it. It's the next generation of guitar technology.
So what's the body style? How do you describe the body style of this?
Well, it's the Crescent, Kiesel Crescent, if you're interested in Googling that, but it's your classic guitar shape. It's kind of like the Fender Stratocaster. It's got the 2 horns, the top one and the bottom one. The top one is bigger than the bottom one. And it's got a carved top. It's not flat on the top. It kind of has the angle, almost like a Les Paul has, how it kind of comes up from the sides. It's a carved top guitar. It's a really premium instrument. It's very nice. It's very cool. And I can't wait to get it. I should be getting it in September. It takes a couple months to make.
You're not gonna go down to San Diego again, and
no,
it's too bad because I drove by the Kiesel, their what is it, their factory or their retail location there.
It's all one place.
It's all one place on the way to the Stone Brewery.
Yeah, we went there when we went to Stone.
And it's just too bad the Stone has never managed to open that hotel they've been threatening to open for so long.
Oh, yeah, that would be so great. I would like to go down to Esco and go to Stone again and go to the Kiesel deal, but it's not really, it's hard to warrant that destination trip for just that.
Well, especially when so many things that normally you'd do in the area you can't do right now.
Oh yeah, I mean right now it's a whole different ballgame when you consider going anywhere. You just can't do much. So that's pretty much it for me. So what are you into right now?
Well, what I'm into right now, it seemed weird to me that I have not, up until this point, recommended any comic books. I've been trying to maybe not typecast myself and recommend other things I was into. But something that seemed sort of on brand with our orc themed discussion, I wanted to recommend, or say I'm into right now, the Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing and art by Joe Bennett. It's so far we're like 34 issues into this run, and it's like the spiritual successor to Alan Moore's seminal run on Swamp Thing in the 80s. It combines some like elements from the classic TV show and from earlier runs of the comic book, but with this sort of Cronenbergian body horror and psychological thriller, and a little bit of like a social commentary in there. And it's, I've said before, the Incredible Hulk is like my favorite comic book character, superhero. And I run on the comic that goes back until the 80s or maybe even the late 70s. This is the best the character probably has ever been written since the 60s. It's very dark. It's very it pulls elements from the lore, from the canon of the comics, but it's something that if you were into those sort of the early Vertigo comics, like Swamp Thing and Hellblazer and stuff like that, it would be a very comfortable fit for someone that read books like that. And so, yeah, Al Ewing is a great author, and Joe Bennett's artwork, especially like the kind of like really gruesome body horror aspects of it, are just it's really engaging. I'm super into it.
So I am a complete Hulk guy. Like, I mean, I don't dislike the character, but I've never read any of the comics or anything. But when I think of Hulk, I always think of there's all these different things. Like there's the TV show, there's the Gray Hulk, there's the Professor Hulk from the movies, there's all this stuff. It almost feels to me like there's just been so much done to the character and so much removal from that original kind of concept that what's the point in revisiting that and rebooting kind of more of the same? Well, what makes it different?
So something that first there's a couple things. So first of all, you go back to the original like 6 issues of the comic book with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. It's much more of a horror themed comic than like a monster comic. It's very early on in the start of Marvel. And they were really coming out of sort of their monster phase where they did a lot of monster comic books. And the Hulk and the Thing both came out of that tradition of these sort of Marvel monsters and then got ported into the superhero world that they were building. And so it's sort of, on some level, it's a return to those roots, where the Hulk becomes the Hulk at night. Like day and night are a big part of the change, like more of like a werewolf sort of thing. And then some other things that they're pulling from, it gets to be some things that were introduced in the 80s with Barry Windsor Smith, and I think Bill Mantlo introduced these ideas about Banner's traumatic childhood and dissociative personality disorder, where he has these alternate personalities that he's created basically as like coping mechanisms or survival strategies. And beyond getting like the Hulk powers, like the superhero part of it, they've given a physical manifestation to all these alternate personalities that he has in his head. And he still has created even more alternate personalities as time has gone on, like the Professor Hulk and things like that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So that's where like the psychological component of it comes in. And then there's also this way, it's called the Immortal Hulk instead of the Incredible Hulk. And they get into the supernatural element of the Hulk, whereas and this is sort of deep lore on the Hulk, but the Hulk can see ghosts, and the Hulk has this connection to like the undead and things like that have never been fully explored. Yeah. And so this is getting into like the Gamma Bomb opening like a dark portal to a hell dimension.
So he is an orc.
Yeah, he is. It's very there is some continuity there between this and the orc thing. So there's a lot of stuff that it's pulling from there, and it's kind of from the vast corners of the lore. Like it's one of those things where all this stuff kind of checks out. Like you're like, oh yeah, that did happen back in 1978, or that did happen in this comic, but then it's just never been touched on again.
Yeah, so they're doing some deep dive nerd stuff.
But at the same time, sort of like those Alan Moore Swamp Things and those comics of that era, like we think of kind of like the British invasion of comic books, where all these British writers kind of started doing more mature stories with the characters. Even though it's steeped in that lore, it's not necessary that you are steeped in that lore to catch up with it.
Okay. That sounds pretty cool. It's got me wondering if there's a trade paperback of it.
Oh, there's several. Yeah,
How
because
many-
we're 34 issues into it.
Are they like 10 issues each or something?
Yeah, something like that. Or maybe not even. Like
Do
probably
you
6.
have them?
No, I don't have the collections. I've got the individual issues.
Oh, okay. Yeah, super nerd. I should have figured. Well, that sounds cool. I'm interested.
Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the call to action.
All right. Well, I'd like to ask you to share our posts on your favorite social media. That's a pretty big one. We'd like to grow our audience. We'd like to get more people exposed to the magic that is our conversation. But-
Yeah, I meant to mention that earlier on. This episode is the first episode we've recorded after we actually have episodes that you maybe have heard.
Yeah, we've got people commenting and liking and interacting with us on social media after our episode 0 and 1 have dropped, and we love it. We're definitely thankful for everyone who's taken the time to listen. I'd further ask that you share it when we post a new episode. That way maybe your friends and family could get into it, and then maybe they can subscribe on their favorite podcatcher, rate us generously. 5-star review costs them nothing, but it means everything to us.
Yeah, we're across the metaverse as Deep Dive the Meta. Dave likes Twitter and I like Instagram. And then we also recently, we're on Untapped, where if you want to follow our beer check-ins from these episodes, you can follow us there.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.